Welcome to Video Head Cleaner, the poppin' podcast where two or more homosexuals take a big hit of a movie of our choice and hopefully leave your head spinning with our takes. Today we're actually going to be talking about 1999's The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. What do you remember from this movie, Tommy, before we get into anything?
Well, Kyle, it's been a while since I've watched this film. I watched it when it was first released, 1999, but, it's a solid 6 years ago.
I don't like that math either.
Yeah. and I haven't watched it just start to finish since, So, this was kind of a reintroduction to the film, and, when I watched it the first time, I was teenager, so much more critical about the film now. But honestly, I think this film has actually held up pretty well. I actually very much enjoyed it. In fact, I even thought the CGI really held up well, which I was very surprised by.
Yeah, it's certainly some 1999 CGI. It's funny that you say this is the first time you've seen it like front to back too, because this is definitely a movie that I would catch on like TBS, TNT or something, where it would just be on one afternoon and I wouldn't get it all, but I'm like, you know what, I am going to watch this because it just was a really fun movie. And
we'll definitely get into discussing it, but honestly, this is a solid film. I don't know. I didn't have any real quibbles about it. I was kind of surprised. I was expecting to think that, oh, well, what a terrible film. I can't believe it. No, actually, I still like it.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Honestly, and we'll get to it at the end of all this, but the reviews are a little lower than I would think for this because I also had no beef with this movie. And it could just be, again, this hit in a time in our lives because I was, 11, 12 or something, pre-teenager, and you're right there that this was honestly just something beloved to us and whatnot. Maybe we are missing something, but I don't know. We watched it back, and the only thing that really, really, really surprised me was that this was not Billy Zane. And I swear to God that this was Billy Zane playing the Mummy.
You were convinced.
I was 100% convinced that's who this was. And it was only when the credits rolled, I was like, what the fuck?
No, that's the villain from Titanic. Another film, I think 1999 as well. So,
But if you put pictures of them next to Billy Zane and Arnold Vosloo, they are the same person.
Yeah, have you seen them in the same room?
No,
you haven't. So there you go. Yeah, no, the definite Billy Zane-like qualities, just kind of in his I don't want to say he has a fat face. That's not the right word. He just kind of has his bone structure. Let's say that.
It's everything if you look at pictures. But that shook me for sure of remembering this. But
shall we dive in?
We'll talk about that later more, I imagine. But let's get into this. So let's start. I mean, it really does just kind of, it has a cute thing where it opens in the Universal Studios logo and then really just jumps into it. It's like 5 seconds in.
Yeah.
There's not like 18 production studio company intros like you have nowadays in movies.
That was refreshing. No more deception about a film like, it was like the Family Guy joke. Oh, what a nice looking lighthouse. Must be a neat story. Oh, it's production company.
Okay, we're back.
Oh, jeez.
There's a dark castle now. Now we're gonna get to. Oh wait, no, that's also.
Come on. Yeah.
So it jumps right in from there. Like it does actually do a cute thing where the Universal logo sort of burns into a sunset or fades into that, and we open up in Thebes, Egypt or whatnot. And we kind of get a guy narrating that we really don't see for like 20, 25 minutes into the film.
He, as we discover, this is Ardeth Bey, a member of a secret society called the Magi, played by Odette Fier. He as we discover, he is standing watch over some action taking place at a what's the name of it? Hamunaptra?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to him, I guess. But it is weird that you mention his name now. They don't mention his name at all till the second movie. Like, he does not get called anything this entire movie.
I didn't realize that actually. But yeah, you're right. Like, do they ever? They don't say his name.
No, not one time in this movie do they say this person's name.
Did I just miss that this entire time? No, they don't actually just say his name.
I kind of was watching for it, clocking it, because when I was writing these notes, I was like, okay, the narrator, the guy, and I was waiting at any point to update in my notes this guy's name, and then the credits roll, and I'm like, oh, okay. Ardeth Bay,
I just missed that. Okay.
Champion of the people here, but
nameless.
But he goes on with his very beautiful monologuing early on. Yeah, this is the voice we hear for this whole Overwatch, or this whole like sort of oversetting scenes. So it talks about Thebes, city of the living, crown jewel of Pharaoh Seti the First, home of Imhotep, and all these things. I mean, he honestly goes for a while. He's very long-winded on this, but he talks about how this is Anck-su-namun, the Pharaoh's girlfriend type something,
That's
mistress.
Right,
no other man was allowed to touch her, and frankly, I see why. She's kind of snatched in the opening situation. Apparently,
she is rocking that Egyptian chic.
Yeah.
Yes, serving up some Egypt fantasy for us all.
And apparently, the actress was literally only wearing like a loincloth and pasties, and everything else is like 4+ hours of body paint like going on her there.
It looked awesome. Yeah, it looked awesome.
It very much did. Yeah. She looks like a woman worth cheating on. And so this is what we just jump into, where we see that that's what's happening. Not Billy Zane, no. Mr. Imhotep. It's meeting in his chambers with an Anck-su-namun, beautiful woman, and he's got some golden bros sort of holding the doors for him.
Yeah, he's got his dudes, his priests, who are assisting in their tryst, their love affair, taking place under the nose of the pharaoh. How dangerous.
And they kind of fail immediately at it, because they go to bar the door to be like, well, you guys can love in peace, and then the pharaoh's guards kick it in, and we're like, not on my watch. Stuff.
So yeah, the pharaoh discovers what they have been doing, that his beloved is unchaste, and he is betrayed by his high priest, his closest confidant. This, of course, leads to his terrible revenge against both of them. Shall we get into the details?
Yeah. I mean, he literally gets stabbed in the back by his wife, for one thing. He's kind of turning around, expressing shock at Imhotep. Yeah, being like, bro, why?
Yes, but that is right. They do kill the pharaoh. It is actually the remnants of what's left of the pharaoh's guard who.
Yeah, because it's just the pharaoh that burst into first. I did get that wrong in that sense, but he's stabbed pretty immediately and is obviously upset about this. He reaches up that one sad hand of why?
Dude, yeah.
Et tu, Brutotep? Like, what are we?
Babe, come on, really? Yeah, exactly. No, I gotta say, just before we continue, if I ever have concubines, I'm gonna cover them in body paint. What a great device for a megalomaniacal type. If I ever become that, Kyle, I'm just letting you know now. I'm gonna paint my harem. Anyway.
And you can see when your harem's body paint is smudged like that, because that's what he clocks in on. He's like, somebody touched you.
Exactly.
You were here for 5 hours in your makeup chair, but somebody's messed it up. Like,
oh no, painting on big fat handprints is just all the fashion. Yeah, exactly. All right, so where were we?
The guards kick the door in after that, and they see that Pharaoh is dead, dying, something of that nature, and so they're clearly gonna start fucking things up. They start messing with the priest and imprisoning him.
The priests' tongues are cut out. As part of their punishment. They're mummified alive. Presumably what's left of them is then buried. I guess not alive, but still.
Yes. Before we get to that, just to finish that scene in their chambers, though, like the guards, I don't know if they're slow or Imhotep's fast, but he's out the door, and Anck-su-namun very confidently just kills herself and says, hey, you can resurrect me. Which to me insinuates that she must have seen him resurrect people before, because she just whips that knife out real quick to do a suicide,
She's real confident about this, which, hey, atta girl.
I don't know if he just told her this before, like to sound cool, like, hey, I can resurrect people, but like, she sure believed him, if nothing else.
he's got a bad bitch girlfriend, and she does not waste time. Yeah.
And it turns out she's right, because the next thing we see is he's taking her body to Hamunaptra and the organs and stuff. He does abscond with her, and that's when he's followed by the guard, unbeknownst to him, where he's real close to doing the ritual. Like her little inky 1999 CGI ghost is like hovering right on her.
Yes. But so close yet so far. Interrupted. Right before consummating the deed, and what then happens in Imhotep is pretty gruesome. It's called the Hamdai, a curse so horrible that it had never been bestowed before. It was just that terrible, and yeah, it involves various terrible things being done to his body. I believe his tongue was cut out.
There's
his
definitely
organs
tongue
removed.
cutting. Yeah,
He was mummified alive and then placed in a sarcophagus with flesh-eating scarab beetles. What?
So
what? Yeah, they do a number.
It's horrible. Yeah. First of all, they really get into like the what's going on with this curse later, and it doesn't seem like you would want to inflict this on your enemy. It kind of makes you a little powerful. But apparently in the novelization, they go a bit more into this, and the fact that he is buried with these scarabs where they're just like ravaging him throughout all of time, and occasionally he'll get hungry enough to eat some of them to sustain his own life, and then just cause this horrible circle of death life in there, because he's supposed to have been kept alive this whole time. That's why this curse is partly so horrible.
Yeah, and that's an important point. He's not killed. They just Hamdai him. They Hamdai him hard and good, but he's dead. ... Or is he?
And that's why they'd stash him in the ground. Although apparently the hole they dug in the ground to put this person in forever was like 5 foot deep. Like they really didn't care that much.
They spent their budget on the Hamdai, and at that point they had 5 minutes.
They have 3,000 years to watch over this shallow hole, apparently, where they're like, I hope nobody.
I mean, you don't think someone's going to come back from that, so I guess it's understandable. Sure, but anyway.
But they do cut his tongue off, and I have in my notes, parentheses, rude. And they lock it with a special key, intending, yes, to keep him buried for all time, and undead for all time. If he does get unburied, we hear our narrator say that he will rise as a walking plague, bringing disease with the power of ages, power over the sands, and, just a little glory of invincibility. So, once again, maybe not the best curse to put on your enemies, or if you do, maybe dig a deeper hole, I'd say.
You can't kill what's already dead, right? So apparently they figured out a lot of crazy, weird magic stuff, but not that, which, okay.
They didn't figure out how to throw somebody down a well, I guess.
Yeah.
Or really.
Why not just incinerate them? I don't know. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like just down a well, in the ocean, anyway. Yeah, they had to style off of them, and it doomed us all, or does it?
It certainly gives it its best shot there. Yeah. So that's done. This opening scene, whole thing, we see basically him being put into the ground. He is the mummy, as we will quickly surmise of this all. But then it jumps to 3,000 years later. So we do a little time skip as a treat.
Time goes by. Things happen, and we find ourselves in the midst of a gun battle at these same ruins, right? Hamunaptra once again.
Yes.
This time it's a squad of legionnaires, French Foreign Legion legionnaires, pinned in at Hamunaptra, and they are being attacked by looks like some tribal warriors.
Yeah, so they don't really actually define in the scene. It is 1923. I kind of had written down like British coated army, like in the white there, because they do look legionnaire-ish.
I had to do a little homework on this, right? The main character, or the corporal of this legion, Rick O'Connell, played by Brendan Fraser. We discover later that he's garrisoned in Libya, right? And this is where we need to do the more you know little historical interlude here. Why are there so many white people in Egypt? Interesting question, Tommy. I know, Tommy. Thank you. So, a little history here. We have the remnants of British colonialism that is starting to unravel. The British have formally declared Egypt to be independent, but they still have a very large military presence there. They still occupy the Suez Canal. They're still very much in Egypt. They still have a lot of influence, mainly just because of military presence. So that will perhaps explain some characters who we will meet later. But Brendan Fraser's character, Rick O'Connell, he mentions that he is garrisoned in Libya. Well, the French had quite a military presence in the area as well, in particular Libya, where they had legionnaires. And presumably this character, Rick O'Connell, is a member of the French Foreign Legion. Again, so they make sure that they can explain why an American might be there. So yeah, little historical background as to just why it makes sense to cast Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, because we are jumped into this scene completely not knowing that at all, and it is funny seeing all of these. Yes, again, very foreign, very 1920s coded, whatever, and then Brendan Fraser's American 1990s accent just busting out there. So it's a fun time, and he does mention later he's worked with a British or something. But yes, so there's a French-British something army here, and then we have the other army sort of in black. It's very native coded, and frankly could be comprised fully of the Magi. We're not sure at this point, but it is very black and white, truly in the coding and the coloring and whatnot. And there's just armies clashing over the city of Hamunaptra. We later find out they may have been there for conquering, colonization, or potentially just treasure in Hamunaptra.
Just greed. They were tempted. They were too tempted, and they have abandoned their post to find and loot what they can, but they get pinned in by some kind of tribal attack.
Big old horseback, everybody charging at them, because they're just on foot and sort of there. And this is why it also would make sense for it to be just the Magi or something, because they are not happy that this other army is in Hamunaptra. Which they're guarding, again, for 3,000 years in the interim of this scene. So get the fuck out of here.
Well, guarding, I guess. People are just crawling all over the site. They're observing, I guess.
They do love to stand up on a cliff several times and just watch people walk in occasionally.
Yes. Standing vigil. But, presumably, this is a long dead secret, or so they hoped, right? They have been guarding this by keeping this place, or the secret of Hamunaptra concealed for 3,000 years, and I guess they have done quite a good job, because only until now does anyone actually stumble into the long lost chamber, right?
For sure. And it's coded in the sense of the guards we see at the very beginning have the same face tattoos. We see these mysterious men in black overlooking on a cliff here doing, and so it's very much show not tell in the sense of like, these are the same guys. This is 3,000 years later in a sense, but so they're not the same guys, but it's like, this is the same sort of mission they're on. And so this is when we also meet not only Brendan Fraser, but one of our comic relief characters in the movie, Benny, who, as they're lining up sort of as the firing line, everybody's getting ready to shoot, holding their ground, and Benny says, "Oh, actually no, wait for me," and runs off after a fleeing man running off. So Brendan Fraser sort of looks back like, "You son of a bitch," and just has to go back to fighting there. But Benny runs off into the temple itself type something, or into the area deeper into that. But lots of fighting ensues. There's a lot of gunfighting in this, a lot of unnamed people going down, going, "Ah," with Wilhelm screams, or any number of things.
That Benny runs into the temple, and that we don't see him die will become relevant later. So we'll just leave it at that.
For sure. When he actually gets in the temple too, he is Brendan Fraser's running at the door, being like, "Benny, don't close that door on me! Benny, don't close that door on me!" It's like, "Benny!"
Yeah, Benny ain't worth a damn. Yeah, not worth a damn.
But Benny does close the door on him. And so that leaves Brendan Fraser, Rick O'Connell, which, again, they don't name him for a long time in this movie. I was waiting forever to get that again, to write things down. But he has at least 7 guns on him at all times. He just whips them out and just guns these people down. Again, he has no we have no context for the scene. He's just murdering at this point. Like we really, it was very little context given to this entire situation. But he kills a whole bunch of them, and then he finally gets cornered and closes his eyes, expecting to die. And then all of a sudden, the 15 dudes that were going to kill him just decide not to do that, and they hightail it out of there.
Something spooks the warriors. What is that?
It does.
What starts spooking them?
It's kind of behind Brendan Fraser, and again, his eyes are closed, so he doesn't see it, but it seems like something in the sand behind him definitely spooked him out.
Kind of whispering, kind of reverberating. Yeah, there's a presence of something, and the tribal warriors, they have either experienced this before, or they have some inkling perhaps of what it is. They turn tail and run. They don't wait. They don't dither. They just drop everything they're doing. They run, much to Rick O'Connell's confusion and concern.
For sure. And he doesn't get too long to dwell on it, because then sand spurts just do start kind of pumping out of the ground. Things are happening, and he's running off. Yeah, and the last we see of this scene is just one man, Rick O'Connell, basically fleeing into the desert, walking off alone, and our cliff narrator with fun face tattoos essentially is like, his friend's like, should we kill that guy? And he's like, no. The desert will kill that guy in a wildly unfulfilled prophecy. 100% come back to bite him in the ass. Like, if the movie would not have happened if they would have just killed Brendan Fraser right there.
Or the mummy, for that matter. The desert keeps on not killing the right people or the wrong people, depending on how you look at it. So it's an unreliable means, for sure. But anyway.
But it's a fun intro. That's our intro to our main character, sort of, Brendan Fraser, who does have, in what I wrote down, the vibe and sort of sex appeal of Indiana Jones. He's kind of got the humor of James Bond, and he has the eyes of Steve Buscemi. So it's a very fun cocktail for our adventure here.
And I'm trying to think, he has the physical grace of, name a big hulking ungraceful actor of the 1990s. Oh, Brendan Fraser. I had forgotten this. Brendan Fraser, he's a good actor, but he just, I don't know. He just kind of has a hulking, inelegant quality to how he moves. I'm trying to think of the right way of putting this.
I think that's right, because the reason he was hired for this movie was right off the back of George of the Jungle, where hulking and ungraceful was 100% his vibe.
And Encino Man. He had a type. He had a mode, for sure, and it worked well. So anyway.
That is interesting. But then we get to a great character scene, honestly, an amazing character intro scene for our next main character, Rachel Weisz, Evelyn in this sense. 3 years later in Cairo, we are taken into a library where we see her putting up books and quickly getting herself into almost a vaudevillian scene where she leans back on a ladder to put a book on the other shelf behind her because she's whoa, 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 and then ends up in the middle of the things, sort of standing on the ladder like via stilts in this way, where she's like, oh no, what have I done? But, I don't. What do you want to say about the scene?
I had totally forgotten this scene was in the film. This is structurally in a film where members of the audience sometimes go back to the concession stand, or they go to the bathroom, or they're getting in late, or something. And so it's kind of a scene that I don't know if it's necessary. It I guess suggests something about the character. She's smart, but she sometimes starts some chain reactions that get kind of out of control. It's maybe a little bit of foreshadowing, of what's coming, by way of this character even, like it's
very much, it's that, because it's like showing that she's book smart and world bad. Like she is bad at navigating the world around her.
There you go.
Because what happens after she's on the ladder, she tips into a bookshelf, which knocks every bookshelf in the room over.
Exactly.
And she's just left in like a smoldering rubble of her own doing.
of knowledge and destruction. Yeah.
To the point that her boss runs in and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, and just drags the shit out of her. He literally says things like, give me frogs, give me flies, give me locusts, anyone but you. And he calls her a catastrophe with like a sick history burn to boot, being like...
Ironically enough, she will deliver to him exactly these things. But we'll get to that later.
It's a very foreshadowy scene, all things considered, looking back. But it's just a funny scene to see, this woman being, oh my God, how did this happen? As I just ruined like an entire library in one fell swoop of
Yes.
And then their boss asked her, he's like, why do you think I keep you around? And she's like, because I'm good at my job. And he's like, no, like that's, look around. No, like he's like, because your parents donated a lot to this museum. Like,
yeah. So they are, I suppose, orphaned in Egypt and taken into the care of the director of the museum, who is scolding her in this scene, but is kind of I guess like a father or uncle figure, something like that.
That's a funny note too, in the sense we really get very little backstory about this, about Evelyn and Jonathan's parents. Apparently that's also covered more in the novelization, like the actual what happened to their parents, maybe a bit how they met type something, but we really don't get a whole bunch of backstory to any of our characters, largely.
But again, end of British colonialism, there's still a very large British presence in the area, and so it's plausible that, sure, her family relocated to Cairo and was wealthy, but they died, but after being beneficiaries or benefactors of the museum. So,
for sure. And So that's happened. Boss kind of storms off, gets tired of reading her to filth, and says, like, clean this up. And then she's doing so and hears a noise and gets a bit apprehensive. And so she kind of starts looking around and isn't quite sure what's going on. And then she eventually peeks into a sarcophagus where a mummy lunges at her.
Oh, my God. But no, it's her brother, Jonathan, our other comic relief. We had Benny. He's kind of evil comic relief, but then we have Jonathan, who's good comic relief. He's one of the good guys. He's kind of, what can I say? I wouldn't say a schmuck. He's kind of.
He's a ne'er-do-well,
a ne'er-do-well. Sure. Yes, there you go. That's the word.
He delights in all these references to him cheating or gambling or womanizing or doing whatever else, but he does have a
dandy. Kind of, yes.
Yeah, he's a shorter, charming British man who just manages to skate by on life through a lot of that we see.
On charm and theft.
He literally has a vibe about him that's like, I can't stay mad at you, Jonathan. You're too adorable. Like, no matter what garbage he's getting up to.
Exactly. And so after using a mummy as a prop to prank his sister, we discovered that he has a fascinating object in his possession. He has a puzzle box that, after Evelyn tinkers with it, it opens up, and it apparently has 8 what do you like sharp triangle points coming off of it. It expands out. But it contains a map, a papyrus map on it.
It's got a map to Hominoptera, and if you're a viewer, I mean, it's barely been any time since the opening scene, but we've seen the same thing in the opening scene. We sort of know what it is to a degree, but yeah, Evelyn's like, oh, what a cute little puzzle box or something, instead of like a star-shaped apocalypse opener or whatever. But she's kind of like shocked that Jonathan actually has something like this, because apparently he's just, again, a ne'er-do-well, and she's like, this is actually like something, and if she finds the map, she's like, oh, this is like really something, Jonathan.
Yeah, this is potentially quite a discovery. I mean, they think it's just a historical artifact, something, a neat trinket from a site, but we will discover it is far more significant than that. The map they present to Terrence Bay, the director of the museum, and while examining it, he almost burns it.
He full-on lights it on fire. Like, he's like holding it up to get more light on it and holds it over the candle. and then it's not that apologetic that he burned this like priceless artifact. Quite quickly upon seeing it.
Yeah, he's got some real toot when it comes to this. You would think that the director of a museum would be a little bit more concerned about just whoopsie doodle lighting an ancient map on fire.
A map to a city that's thought to be mythical at this point. Like, 3,000 years ago in the opening scene, we see it as the city of the dead, but it's been so long and it's buried by sand and stuff that it's truly not known to even be real at this point.
Yeah, at this point, it's a fable. It's a myth, like a long-lost city of gold, as it were. And apparently any number of archaeologists or treasure hunters have pursued it, and all for nothing. And so...
or for their own death, apparently.
Or worse.
While he's being unapologetic, he's basically saying, that was probably for the best anyways.
Yeah. We saw what you did to my library. Let's not tempt you any further.
Oh, did I burn a tiny corner of your map when you ruined my library?
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, poor Evelyn.
Exactly. All right. Well, after almost incinerating the map,
she has to try to learn where it came from, right? Or
their curiosity has definitely been piqued, and they want to know what this map is about, and so they need someone who could actually get them to Hamunaptra. It's a real trek. It's not safe, as we've seen already, and so who do they turn to? Well, as it turns out, Rick O'Connell has washed up again. This is about 3 years later, after the opening scene of him pinned in at Hamunaptra. And Evelyn and Jonathan, they find him in a Cairo prison.
And they're here because Jonathan actually picked his pocket.
Yes.
He calls it picking the pocket of a local drunk. And so we do see him being brought out because she went to the jailer, a greasy ball of a man that also has some comic relief coming up here. But Evelyn's charming the jailer. Jonathan's sort of apprehensive to visit this man that he's robbed, frankly, to come ask questions about the thing that he stole from him. And
Rick, he's kind of a wild man at this point. The last 3 years have not been kind to him, or he's been having a go of it. He's landed in prison. Why was he in prison again? Was it gambling or was it drunken disorderly conduct?
They really don't specifically say why, but they say that Brendan Fraser's character says it's because I was just having fun or having a good night. And then later in the scene where we find out he's to be executed, the jailer remarks, he must have had a really good night. And so it's played a bit for laughs, but yeah, he's got long hair. He's again called a drunk in this scene type something.
What he does for entertainment is a mystery. However, it's enough to get him in a Cairo prison. So there you go.
Yeah,
and is enough to get him hanged or almost. He fortunately doesn't. Evelyn frees him with a kiss.
Well, he's just trying to get out, and frankly, he's happy to take a kiss and steal one because he's not sure if he's about to die, frankly. And so they're asking him questions, and he says something like, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? And she's like, yes, a little innocent Evelyn, and leans forward. And that's when he steals the kiss, and it's like, then get me out of here.
So they how do they free O'Connell? I forget this one point. Oh, that's right. They entice the prison warden.
Well, he's swinging by his neck when that happens. So that we move to quickly where they are going to hang this man, and Evelyn just tries to offer him 200, 300, 400 pounds or something at first,
basically,
to be
basically half,
just a little bit of cash. And the jailer's not really having that, and so he's like, actually, just hang that man. And as he's swinging there, Evelyn clearly has a bit more fire under her to get this deal done, and so she starts offering things like, I'll give you half the treasure, and then they start negotiating down, and they get to. The jailer says 25% after she said 30, and she's like, oh, I got you. And the jailer's like, you got me. Cut him down, type something. And just a note on this scene, apparently they did this really, really practical in the sense of Brendan Fraser almost died in this scene. The director's quote, I believe, let me find this, but...
They almost hanged Brendan Fraser.
They almost murdered Brendan Fraser for sure. he had to be resuscitated. Like, he fully had passed out and was done. And the director, Stephen Sommers' only direction, according to Brendan Fraser later, was, look good, don't die. And then he shoved him and said, action.
What a madman. Wow. Okay.
This is what we had before CGI, folks. Was movies where
we had insane directors. That's how we did it back in the day, kids.
Really practical effects.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a method acting right there. Just hang the actor. Jeez.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
he's cut down, and then now we do have a small semblance of a party, because not only do we have Evie and Jonathan, we now have Rick leading the way, and we have a jailer coming along to make sure to protect his investment, as he classifies it.
So we now have our expedition party here. We have Evelyn and Jonathan, we have Rick, and we now have the prison warden. And yeah, they set off, right? Or wait, no, we have one more moment. The Magi come looking for them, right?
I think that happens on the boat. Hang on. Let's see. But Jonathan does get punched in the face by Brendan Fraser at that jail scene, too.
Yes. Before we forget.
Do I know you? And Jonathan says, no, I don't think so. I just got one of those faces near the bars. And Brendan kind of cocks his head at him and then just punches him right in the face. And I think Jonathan deserves this, frankly, because this is also the scene where Evie is shocked that Jonathan lied to him about finding the puzzle box himself. And Jonathan says, I lied to everyone. Why do you think you're special? And so we get another bit of characterization about Jonathan being a dirtbag. But I can't stay mad at you, dirtbag, because he's just so charming about it. Yeah.
And, Rick does just punch Jonathan square in the face. And we were comparing this character to, like, Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. And, I watched a couple of Indiana Jones. I watched Temple of Doom kind of recently, and I had forgotten that Indiana Jones is kind of violent. And it's
he just punches people for sure.
Yeah, they definitely did pattern Brendan Fraser's character off of this, just in the fact that he just punches people, just on a whim. But anyway,
there's an Indiana Jones game I played called Fate of Atlantis, which is back in DOS days, to really age myself. But there were 3 ways you could solve things as Indiana Jones. There were 3 diverging paths. One of them is like intellect. The other is you can do it like a sort of teaming up, like friendship. And one of them is fists. You can just punch a lot of Nazis as Indiana Jones with fists. So yeah, honestly, that's easily the archetype mapped over this character. He's just very Indiana Jones in general. But
yes.
And so they're setting off in a very, I know a bit of archaeology about this spot, sort of Indiana Jones way. They're getting on a boat, which is very Indiana Jones coded or whatever, because he ends up on several of those in those movies. And that is when they find that not only are they trying to get to the city of Hamunaptra, there's another party looking for them.
Yeah, do you remember Benny, Rick's so unreliable right-hand man and lieutenant back at the Battle of Hamunaptra? Well, Benny's back, and he's bringing a whole crew of Americans with him, treasure hunters. They got a scholar with him, but this is a counter party to our main protagonists, and they are also looking for Hamunaptra. They have their guide. They're kind of the I wouldn't say the shadow of our main party, but they're kind of the counterpoint. Right, they're a bit greedier, but I don't know. They're all kind of on the same ship of fools, as it were.
Oh, for sure, because we meet them
to their doom.
They're gambling with Jonathan when we meet them, and at first it's not even clear if Benny is like how they've learned about this or somebody. Jonathan's just running his mouth. That's what they learn, because they learn they're like, oh, we're going to Hamunaptra just like you, O'Connell, and Rick's like, what the.
Yeah.
Who the fuck told you that? And then Jonathan, it pans over to him, and you're like.
Yeah. Jonathan's leaking like a sieve. Unfortunately, he spilled the beans. They are now revealed as a competition.
And we do find there that they make a bet. They say we're going to get to Hamunaptra first, and it's just a minor monetary bet or something. But they find out they're headed to the same place, essentially. And so we go down to another scene where O'Connell is talking to Evie. He rolls out his very large, dangerous bag of guns, knives, and a full-on grappling hook, which I don't think gets used in this movie, but by God, if he needs to grapple somewhere, he is prepared.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Well, you never know when you need a grappling hook, to be totally honest. I mean, but let's see. So we are preparing for the expedition, but something happened to the boat, right? The boat gets attacked at some point.
Oh, yeah, they're talking. Evelyn says she's kind of looking for the Book of Amun-Ra, and it's just like, oh, wow, it'd be so great if we find it. And cynical Rick is like, oh, it doesn't hurt that it's made of gold, does it, huh? Or something. But he's still kind of not sure about her as like a pure academic with no greed in her heart type something, because he's seen a lot of greedy people and a lot of people, just like the Americans we saw in the previous scene, that are looking for Hominoptera purely for treasure and for gold and for all of those rumors.
They're kind of an odd couple. Evelyn is again, like you described, book smart, world dumb. Brendan Fraser kind of his character's kind of the other way around. Also far more gruff, more hulking, clearly more brutish. Again, a counterpart to the softer, more feminine Evelyn.
Very much so,
yes.
Because she's in that same scene, is excited. She's like, you know about the Book of Amun-Ra? And he's like, I know my treasure, like not my
books,
artifacts. Yeah,
I'm not going there to read. Come on.
And she, in that same scene, asks him, why did you kiss me? Still curious about that situation. And he very candidly just says, I don't know, I was about to be hanged, and it sounded like a good idea at the time. And so that doesn't make her happy. She storms off with that one. Then as she storms off, Rick hears a noise, though, and that is when we find out it is Benny. He pulls...
Yes.
Little rat Benny out from behind, making little rat noises back there, and he says a great. There's so many good quotes from this movie. I'm really trying not to just like read a whole lot of them because it's a great movie. Just watch it. But this is when he says like, "Well, if it ain't my little buddy Benny, I think I'll kill you." And Benny says, "Think of my children." And Rick says, "You don't have any children." Benny's like, "Someday I might." Like. They have a very fun interplay, despite being
it's good banter,
quite at odds throughout the whole movie.
Banter.
But we find out Benny's leading the expedition that Jonathan was playing cards with. Benny mouths off, and O'Connell kind of chuckles while throwing him overboard, and has another great line: "Bye, Benny." Because I think he's a bit done with Benny's shit after he almost fully died.
Yeah. Benny's kind of jammed him up a bit already, and here's his, as you point out, he's a very rat-like person. He has very, very rat-like qualities, for sure. Again, he's kind of the evil comic relief. You always enjoy Benny getting thrown overboard or getting punched, or just Yeah,
it's a very cathartic character.
This will be a source of entertainment throughout the film.
But then right after that, a lot of these things happen really quick on the boat. We see wet footsteps insinuating somebody else is on the boat.
Yes.
And that is when we find out that it's the Magi, one of whom grabs Evelyn and immediately asks her where the map is.
Yeah. They're on him. They realize what's going down, and this is their sole mission is to prevent exactly this from happening, and it's just unraveling before them, and so they take direct action and they storm the boat.
And I feel like if they would have even said a little something to Evelyn or anybody, they might have not been what do I have here? Unceremoniously shot to death by O'Connell in the same scene, because they really are not forthcoming about why they're saying not to do this for a while. Like, they're just like, give me the map. And since this is happening to his beautiful love interest, O'Connell doesn't care, and it's just, I started blasting anyways. Like, and he takes out a couple Magi and a lantern, lighting the boat on fire, which seems unhelpful at best. I'll say.
Generally bad when you're on a wooden boat. And so, yes, it's time to jump ship. And they do.
No, not yet. Because in that confusion of that, Evie stabs one of the guys, her captor, in the eye, and runs out but leaves the map behind. O'Connell kind of takes her. Jonathan stumbles in as this man who has been stabbed in the eye is leaning over and is like, "Oh, it's okay. I'm stabbed in the eye, but I got this puzzle box." But Jonathan just kind of bursts into the room like, "Where's Evie? What's going on here?" And manages to run into this guy, knocking him into a couch full of fire and lighting this man fully on fire. In his bumbling way. And Jonathan kind of looks at that guy and was like, "Huh, that's weird." And then bends down and picks up the puzzle box himself and just fucking leaves.
He's very nonplussed. And I forgot, Evelyn just stabbed him in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the women in this film got knives. Like you got to be careful. They're stabbing everyone.
They do stab people, and it's honestly not that violent of a movie. They get some of the more violent things that happen. But right after Jonathan leaves the burning room, we see that the Magi are burning the boat anyways. So it's like, good job, Rick. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're a pioneer. You're a trendsetter, I guess.
They're taking advantage of an opportunity.
Because I was worried. I thought that was where the boat fire came from. But no, they're just lighting things like hay on fire and stuff anyways. But that's when, O'Connell just guns down some more Magi, gets in a fist fight. Apparently there are a lot of Magi, and they do get rather unceremoniously dealt with through a lot of this movie. But then he kicks into another explosion of flame, and he lights a lot of them on fire too. And then that poor stabbed, burning man, comes up to the top deck to finish Jonathan and kind of burns it. Comes out literally fully on fire, and is like, "I'm gonna get you," pointed at him. But the Americans with their guns just and their big cowboy energy just kind of gun him down. And that's when everybody jumps in the river because I'm sorry. I thought that flaming stabbed man story was too good to pass up. Its little side arc of
It's really just when the Americans just start shooting that people are like, "Yeah, we got to go. Like, we got let's just jump in the river."
And so everybody gets in the river from both of our parties at this point. There is another funny line where our greaseball of a jailer sees Rick about to jump overboard, and it's like, "What do I do?" And Rick goes, "You stay here. I'll go for help." and the jailer sort of like stays for a few seconds, looks around and is like, "Oh, fuck, he was joking, wasn't he?" And then jumps himself overboard too. But
you never want to pass on an opportunity for a gag, for sure.
Not in this movie.
If you're an Indiana Jones like adventurer. Yeah,
if
absolutely.
Rick does anything in these two movies, he shoots people and he has great one-liners.
Quips. Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, this whole scene leads to probably my favorite memorable, like, as a kid line that happened, because the two parties end up on different sides of the river, and the Americans actually do have a lot of the horses and supplies or whatever, and so Benny, in a very braggy way, seeing O'Connell over there with just Evelyn and Jonathan, shouts, "Hey, O'Connell, looks like we got all the horses." And Rick looks around and yells back at Benny, "Hey, Benny, it looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river."
Womp womp. Yeah. So they pull out ahead, even though they lose all their supplies. They got only themselves, but they are on the right side of the river, so they do continue into the desert. Right? They get some horses, right?
Well, they get some camels, but frankly, Evelyn also has lost all of her trunks and clothing and whatever, and for some reason just gets put in this absolutely pussy outfit of just looking incredible. Like, it's all black. She's got like this mesh, like little veil thing. She's got like high black boots, like a bandolier stash of coins. Like, it's incredible. And it's like, this is just something I just pulled together after being on my no clothes situation.
Yes, Rick, Caesar, his heart's aflutter. He has to catch his breath.
It's very that. It's like
striking.
The librarian can look like this. Like, excuse me. Like,
exactly. It's naughty librarian.
We're going to the club.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
I thought we were going to Hamanoptera. Like,
yeah. She gets a Egyptian glow up and is looking glamorous.
It's
for
like
sure.
full belly dancer, because I
Yeah,
saw some
exactly.
belly dancers at a Ren Fair recently, and it is that outfit, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with the silken face veil with the coins on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Sword to be your librarian is now just dripping with sex pot,
Yes.
as it were. But honestly, this doesn't even stick around for that long. It's just very notable, because I was just stunned. I was like, girl, you look...
The film has a moment where you get a glimpse of Evelyn's allure and her femininity. You know, again, these moments where Rick and Evelyn are set in contrast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, rough and tumble versus, you know, soft and silken, you know.
Laying the groundwork for the main romantic thing of it.
Exactly.
But yes, they stop there. They get their camels, and then the next thing we see is that they happen to just meet the Americans right outside the city and reiterate their bet and start a little race scene, because they are now racing to see who can get into Hominoptera first.
Yeah, they're trying to unlock the mystery of this site, and so we have two competing archaeological expeditions happening. We have the Americans kind of in a main camp, and then our protagonists kind of off to the side, kind of in a seemingly more remote part of the complex. But they start exploring. They're investigating. They're digging. They're prying at stones, and they.
I only have one note about the race.
Yeah.
It's really not that big of a scene or whatever, but it does happen where Benny's on top of O'Connell at one point, and it's just whipping him, and it's like, just whipping the shit out of Rick until he gets annoyed enough that he grabs Benny and just throws him off his horse, because he loves to throw Benny off of things. Like, that is a big theme of this movie.
Exactly.
And Rick and Evelyn do win. Frankly, again, this is for a very minor bet. I don't think we see them get their $500 or whatever. But
we should maybe have had a Benny getting tossed count. This is the second time now. Is this the second time?
Just Benny misfortune counts. Like, he never really comes out on top too much of it.
No.
But yes, at this point they're off in their separate camps, and the one camp is just the four people of Rick, Evelyn, Jonathan, and then the jailer. And then the Americans have a lot of hired labor we're seeing at this point too, like local labor, led by a misogynist in a fez, the academic you called out earlier, and jaunty little fez.
Who is constantly shading Evelyn, one snooty scholar to another not so snooty scholar, but they have their intellectual with them. He is their translator and their knowledgeable source about the inscriptions and the lore surrounding the complex, and has snooty disdain for Evelyn.
And straight out misogyny is mentioned, because they'll be like, should we worry about them? And he's like, no, they're led by a woman. Anyways, back to
it's just the times.
But then they're digging in different areas is the thing. They have a much bigger concerted effort with the Americans, their big workforce, whereas our group of heroes and the jailer get into the area where they mummify people, and they kind of find potentially, I think it's the same room where the priests were being detongued and mummified earlier, as they sort of go deeper into the city. There's a very tense moment where they hear something and they pull their guns and sort of round a corner, only for it to be the Americans, where they both turn the corner at the same time and point their guns at each other in a fun little Mexican standoff beat. And then they lower them for a second, and then they raise them, and then they lower them and raise them, and they're like...
but before this, we hear some strange sounds, some whispers coming from one of the statues, right? A statue of Anubis. We something widgy's going on. We got a glimpse of this in the first battle of Hominoptera, and now once again, strange sounds are emanating from something. Let's see. Is this when they find the Book of Amun-Ra?
Yeah, so they kind of all go separate ways again, and they go back to their dig site in that room type something. Yes, where we're hearing this. She has Rick and Jonathan digging upwards, as she's pretty sure of where they'll come up based on the map and some certain things, while the jailer goes off on his own little treasure hunting mission. So we do see Rick and Jonathan basically knock a mummy out of the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah, they're prying at the ceiling. They're doing some digging while the Americans are distracted, and this continues for a bit. And I'm trying to remember when.
Well, what's happening on this too is they do find the sarcophagus, whatever. Honestly, by accident, Jonathan hits like a golf ball and knocks it out of the ceiling after that. But the jailer is he finds these jeweled scarabs on the walls that he thinks are just treasure and just jewels.
Yeah.
And so he, being as very much shown to the boy, it's just a greedy little scuzzball, starts popping them out in his knife and putting them in his pocket, thinking, just take these. I don't think anybody will mind or anything.
Yeah, he thinks they're like tinted gold, and if they look like it. They look like they're just inset in the wall, but oh no.
And right after that, where he's like, "This is surely safe. Nothing bad happens in this tomb because things are positive in here." We immediately see the Americans workers get melted via what we find they say to be like salt acid or something.
Yeah. The Egyptians, they got some tricks. They got some ancient deadly booby trap technology, molten salt acid. Which, again, anyone in the audience, please contact us. Let us know if this is a thing. I didn't research this. I kind of hope it's true actually because it just sounds awesome. But yeah, they get a face full of acid. Not a good sign, not a great start, and it starts going downhill from there. As we mentioned, the warden is loading his pockets up with beautiful golden beetles, and after some time, they're still digging. They open the sarcophagus and they find the mummy, right?
Well, the jailer, we see right after that, does in fact get scarabs burrowing inside him, and a horrifying scene that frankly threw child me for a little loop at the time, being like, oh no, because it is very body horror. Like they show them burrowing under the skin and moving up his body all throughout.
Yeah, they're I guess they're not eating. I can't imagine they can eat that much, but they can definitely burrow through flesh. And it's got to be pretty gruesome because the things always start at the feet. They never burrow. They're always going to the brain. That's their goal. But they always start in the feet, and just to really milk it for as horrible as it could possibly be. These things, they burrow all the way from the bottom to the top of your body, and then I guess eat your brain.
I think that's how that scene ends, frankly, is a little crunching thing. They do love a cutaway to this because this is supposed to be a very family-friendly film, and despite some horrific things happening to people, they always do manage, for the most part, a cutaway type something.
Yeah, but the implication is pretty clear.
Oh, they're always very clear because
the sound is very much wet celery. Being ripped apart, for sure.
Yeah, the cutaway scenes do come with juicy sound effects often, and so he's pretty well done here on that. But when they do find the sarcophagus, Evelyn translates it as to "he who shall not be named," which to me, I sat back and go, "Oh my God, it's Voldemort!"
Run, Harry.
No.
Kind of. There's some Voldemort qualities here. I guess his canopic jars are kind of like his Horcruxes in a way, you know.
A little bit. Apparently, the real translation is like "he who has no name." Come to find out, but I found myself funny in that moment. But she finds the keys needed to open it, and Evie immediately sees, based on the puzzle box thing she has, that this is the key. But they're interrupted from doing it by hearing their jailer's horrified screams by being eaten alive.
He's being ripped apart from the inside by beetles.
So they kind of paused to go check that out.
But yeah, they're they find. Let's see, they do open it.
Well, yeah, we have. Let's see. They don't open it that day. I think they kind of stop for the night. That's when Rick does describe the American Diggers as having melted. Evie expresses skepticism over the curse over this place, even though previous people have now melted and been eaten to death. She's just... This is just something that happens. This isn't supernatural to Evie.
And we forgot to mention, they do find a fascinating book. It is not.
The Americans find the book, and they find the book in the jars.
Yeah, but it's not the book that we were looking for. It's not the Book of Amun-Ra, right?
It's not the Golden Book, no,
it's
for sure.
Some other book.
It's a black book, and it does have that same locking symbol on it that needs the key to sort of open it up. And so we see the Americans expressing joy sort of that night over having found these jars, which we as the viewer know contain the organs of Anck-su-namun. And then the Book of the Dead is this one, I believe. This we saw in the very beginning. The Mummy was reading from this. This was his spell book for bringing back the pharaoh's wife, Anck-su-namun. And once again, the Book of the Dead has been rediscovered. And later on that night, in the camp, Evelyn reads from it. She starts reading from the Book of the Dead. They are attacked that night by the Magi, actually, before she's reading for that, I believe. And once again, these people are just gunned down. Do not ever tell them what they're trying to stop them from doing, which again, they might be on board with. These various people might be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. There's a murder apocalypse mummy down there. Let me just get the fuck out of here. But like, the Magi just always come in like, and then,
they're committed.
They're not very good at fighting either for being so committed to this. Like, I don't know how this happens, but yeah. But eventually, after enough of the Magi get killed, the leader, again, Ardeth Bey, who was never named in this movie, says, like, you know what, there's been enough killing here today, and then just tells them they have a day to get out of here. And then that is when we wake up the next morning. I believe the Americans are still convinced that treasure is down there and suggest perhaps teaming up only at night because they've now been attacked by people they don't know. But Evie has actually, it's not the morning. It's still the nighttime scene. But Evie gets drunk. It's a very, very cute scene. She plays drunk, absent-minded academic extremely cutely. She says to Rick at one point, I bet you're wondering, what is a place like me doing in a girl like this? And Rick says, yeah, something like that.
This film, it's got these great little one-liners that fit with the characters. These little quips, like little turns of phrase or whatnot. I don't know, just delightful little moments like this, right? Just a well-written script.
It's very fun. Yeah. It's very charming. I love this
fun.
Whole movie. It's just bits like that sprinkled throughout that I may not have remembered, but when you hear them, it's just delightful. Yeah, they're just cute, fun little lines. And so Rick says he doesn't really understand her like he does Jonathan, because I think he's very familiar with a Jonathan in the world, a dirtbag, whatever. But as we get some backstory about her father here, we learn that Evie and Jonathan's father was an adventurer who ended up marrying Evie's mother, an Egyptian who was somewhat of an explorer herself. She might have been given a little academic vibe, kind of like Evie, perhaps foreshadowing, again, adventures and academics and whatever, but perhaps being a little of an explorer herself, as it were.
Yeah. So she's got a lineage. She's kind of got it in her blood, as it were. Kind of cloistered librarian notwithstanding, it's there. She's got the spark.
But she also, again, still being cute and drunk in this, sort of gets confident about expressing her feelings more towards Rick or something, and starts to say that, well, I may not be an adventurer and explorer, but I know what I am. And Rick's like, what is that? And she's like, I'm a librarian.
She says triumphantly into the night.
And she then goes to kiss Rick, which he seems happy about, but at that moment she's about to do that, she passes out. She got too drunk, too cute, but honestly just a very adorable scene where Evie continues to be the best, sort of, on that.
Yeah.
And so...
the budding relationship between the two.
okay, so we jumped ahead a bit. The Americans did not find this stuff yet. Right after that, in the morning, is when the Americans do find a chest. And the intellectual, jaunty, fez misogynist translates the inscription as, death comes on swift wings to whosoever may open this chest. And then they open it. They think, what's the worst that could happen? Right?
Yeah, yeah. No one reads. No one reads the warnings. Yeah, exactly.
He also reads, "There's one of the undead that, if brought back from the dead, will kill all who open this chest and assimilate their organs and fluids, and in doing so, he will regenerate and no longer be the undead, but a plague upon this earth." They read that too before opening it. They don't only have the first thing that's like, "Hey, don't open this box." They have something that's like, "No, really, don't fucking open this box if you like your organs and fluids." But they're like, that's probably fine. Like, I can't imagine why anything bad would happen with messages like these on there.
They tried really hard, and they explained it all in detail. And some people they can't be helped. Like the more details you give them about the terrible fate that will befall them, the more they think, they're crazy. They're just making stuff up. They're hallucinating. Sometimes you just got to put a big nose slash or like a skull, a big poison skull. And you can't make this too complicated because everyone's an idiot, I guess. I don't know. You would think that some warning about just sucking all the fluids out of you, there are all these opportunities where they could just not. And they don't. They really don't. It's just, and I guess there's something about greed here, right? They're either too curious or too greedy. I guess there's some things that should be left undisturbed. But yeah, they got a lot of warnings, and they just blithely barrel forward.
I'm sure the plague beast will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Who needs fluids?
Whatever's
right?
in this box is almost certainly worth it.
Yeah.
And so we see the Americans find that at the same time where Evie and our remaining heroes, or just heroes at this point, Rip Jailer, open up Imhotep's tomb, and they find only a mummy who looks kind of different from the other mummies Evie has ever seen.
He looks a little wet.
Yeah.
He's kind of wet. Oddly fleshy and wet for a mummy.
As she's trying to put her finger on what makes him a different mummy, both Rick and Jonathan say at the same time, he's a little juicy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So they identify that he was buried alive because they see fingernail marks on the inside and a message he's full on carved out saying death is only the beginning, which, again, just horrifically ominous. Maybe we lock that right back up. But no.
But once again, a nice touch about the film. The film is so tasteful. They don't show just gory, explicit violence a lot of times, but claw marks on a sarcophagus. It just, again, there's a kind of a light touch about the film, like for an adventure epic, there's a sensitive touch to it. And that's actually, like we talked about, it's supposed to be a family friendly film. And so they don't show a lot of blood, and whatnot, but they do leave a lot of things expressed with implication, and it's nice, it's classy.
We may not see any blood, come to think of it.
When I think about it, is there any blood?
People get punched in the face and don't bleed. Yeah, they get stabbed.
Yeah,
we really don't see that. Lighting on fire doesn't result in blood, so I feel like that was on the table, or the cutaways. Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. So
they definitely colored inside the lines, but it's still great, horror movie, and there's certainly horrific elements of it.
Let's see. So they find the juicy mummy,
and the Americans show that they found the organ jars from the opening thing, and a thick black book they don't identify, but we already talked about Book of the Dead. Same unlocking mechanism on there, and that Evie remarks they need a key to open it, and kind of it's a fuck you to oh wow, you got a book, huh? It'd be a shame if you didn't have that key. And then as they're sitting around the fire, sort of explaining about the scarabs being in the tomb and that they were eating the man alive, they talk about how he was condemned to the worst curse ever. Evie's kind of just skimming these things that were on the sarcophagus. Find out that it was reserved for only for the worst of the worst offenders, apparently.
Yeah. Again, the Hamdai. We mentioned that earlier.
For sure.
And so they return to camp that night, and Evelyn is examining the Book of the Dead.
She steals it from the American professor who's sleeping.
Yeah.
Which we see her sort of sneak by Rick, thinking she's been really sneaky because he's got his eyes closed. And Rick says, that's called stealing. Everyone says, according to my brother, this is called borrowing. And just gives him a big old grin. Like,
Boom.
she's very pleased with herself. Rick is unsure about opening this book, but Evie just plows ahead, and a whipping wind comes by afterwards, once again being like, hey, maybe don't do this.
Yeah. The most knowledgeable amongst us are the ones leading us to our doom. Unfortunately, it's just kind of a classic in I guess the genre, curious to a fault.
And so she starts to read from the book, and as she delightedly finishes out the last passage, we see both the mummy come back to life, and then in a smash cut, the American guy she stole it from say, "No, you must not read from the book." And like, I gotta give it to him. He's right.
Yeah, he got that one right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so immediately a swarm of locusts just like bursts up, descends on Hominoptera.
Yeah. Things start getting bad. They did the thing they should not have done. And now the mummy's out. They released the mummy, and now all hell's starting to break loose.
And because of the locusts, both parties are driven inside the temple, essentially, the city in there, which we now know to have the mummy inside of it. And so we get a big tense moment of like, that can't be good.
Crap, locusts. Oh, geez. Yeah.
And so as they flee in there, we get one American who, again, they really don't give them names through this. I'm sorry if this is there's probably a Gerald or a Ferguson or a somebody that their names or whatever they are. We get the American with the glasses, mind you, who while everybody is running in the chaos, his glasses get knocked off and crushed even. Crushed by Benny, who is fleeing as Benny loves to do. It's one of his favorite hobbies, fleeing away from his allies and saying, fuck you!
So he really screws over the hunky, bespeckled expeditioner or the treasure seeker. By the way, this is the first, I believe, the first moment when we have one of the explorers getting all their fluid sucked out of them. This starts a kind of...
He keeps his fluid for a moment, but I guess, and this is also a good point to call out, that Benny was not somebody that opened the box. Whenever they were reading all these awful things, Benny actually said, you know what? I'm good, and left. So the people that did open the box are jaunty, fez, misogynist man, then 3 different Americans. So there's really 4 people here.
There is a death curse associated with this, and yes, Benny, he does have self-preservation.
And there were 5 jars, but one of them is smashed. And so I believe we cover the smashing here because this is a very horror-coded scene because the guy is he's kind of holding his glasses up. He's like, I can't see, and then he's asking, he's like, hey guys. Hey, is anybody there?
Yeah.
And then we hear a horrific scream, another smash cut to black with an awful scream. And the next time we see this man, he is missing his eyes and his tongue.
That's right. He gets pulled apart piece by piece. The mummy is collecting organs. He's got to grow back, and he starts with the bespeckled hunky treasure hunter.
Bespectacled.
Yeah.
He could be bespeckled too. I mean, he's been out in the sun a lot, frankly.
Good. Yes. Good point. Yes.
I am bespeckled as a redhead.
Yes. Yeah. Good clarification. Thank you.
But we kind of don't see him for a second. There's a swarm of scarabs chasing Rick and Jonathan and Evie further into the tomb. Evie leans up against a wall and falls backwards, leading her to find the American with glasses, this guy, who, when he turns around and sees her, when she sees him, rather, he's not seeing much of anything.
No.
She then sees what has been wrought, and then we shortly after that see the mummy. We see Imhotep in the room now, and he sort of menaces towards Evie, but the hero, Rick and Jonathan, sort of get in there, and let's see. We see the mummy start to call Evie an ox and a moon, or at least
He seems to recognize her. Maybe he sees what he believes is his long lost love, or we're not. There's something mysterious, but he's enamored of her.
He at least pauses the murder for a second to reflect on this, giving Rick and Jonathan enough time to sort of come in here, shoot him up just a little bit. Again, it doesn't really do anything, but it just sort of distracts him or gives him a moment. He is at his somewhat weakest because the more he's going to gather from these people, the more he becomes human up until becoming immortal, invincible, unstoppable, ultimately, if he achieves his goals, is the deal.
Yeah, but he's a little ragged. He's been not quite dead, but died for a while, and yeah.
But he does have eyes and a tongue now.
He does.
He's starting from the bottom.
Exactly. So yeah, so they let the mummy out. One guy is already getting ravaged by him, and yeah, they're being chased and.
Well, at this point, the Magi show back up, and they're kind of unhappy. We'll say.
Yeah, understandably. You know this thing we've been trying to do for 3,000 years. Well, damn it.
Oh, you just fucked that up real good for us, didn't you?
You just crapped on our cornflakes, didn't you? Yeah,
and,
thanks.
They're trying to impress the situation upon that to be like, because it's the first time, they're like, hey guys, like, this was bad. And Rick says, no, don't worry, I got him. I shot the mummy or whatever. And the Magi is kind of like frowning at him like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But thank you for that. Like,
I'm sure you did, buddy. Good job there.
And at this point, because everybody else has made it out, the Americans, our heroes, whatever, we cut to Benny in the tomb, the only remaining person still down there, and he encounters the mummy. And in a true Benny moment, as the mummy is menacing towards him, Benny just starts to pray to any god he can think of.
I thought this was a really funny moment. Benny has on his possession any number of religious relics and indicators of religious affiliation. He first tries a cross, hoping the cross will ward off the mummy to no avail. He then tries a crescent moon, but Islam is not going to save him from the mummy. But he has a Star of David on him, and the mummy recognizes that and assumes that Benny is one of the Jewish slaves that were in Egypt and were impressed into labor by the pharaohs. And so the mummy, assuming that Benny is a Jewish slave, takes him on as his henchman, his minion.
He says it could be useful. He does say language of the slaves for sure. It's a very funny moment, especially because like Benny, he knows all the languages, like polyglot icon Benny. Just
he's got some skills. Yeah.
He knows what to do if he's in a bind. And
he's a weasel, but he's a smart
every
weasel.
god he can think of.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know what? Maybe one of these is real. Like,
I think Benny stands for us all. Because honestly, like I think we're more likely to be Benny than any other character.
If there's no atheists
if we're being honest with ourselves, yeah. If we're gonna just look starkly in the mirror, we're all Benny, aren't we? I think we are. But anyway.
And so Imhotep does also, at least, not that he probably has to, he could just menace Benny, but he does hold out his little disgusting, juicy hand full of gold and is like, I will reward you for this as well if you help me find these other jar holder things.
Yes.
And so we cut to Fort Bryden, Cairo, is what it labels it as, but just back to Cairo, essentially. Where a storm is rolling in over the city. It's very clearly showing us through the environment now, like, bad things coming in now.
So as I mentioned before, the British still have quite a military presence in supposedly independent Egypt, and that's Fort Bryden. That's the context of that, right? So a British military outpost, a remnant of colonialism.
They actually couldn't even film this movie in Egypt at the time because of political unrest, so... fun echoes of that resounding throughout, like literally both in the movie and outside of it.
Right.
But they're there. Rick is packing to leave. Evie unpacks just as quickly, being like, "No, we're gonna stop him. We're gonna stop this juicy mummy." And she awakened him. She feels a little whatever, but that's another cute little trope of the like packing the bag. I take the bag out. I do the thing of the whatever of. And so as that's happening, Evie says to him at one point, she's like, "We have to stop him," and Rick is like, "We? Oh, like I was contracted to take you there, and now we're we." So.
Yeah, no, he wants to Han Solo out of there as quickly as possible, but like all mercenaries with a heart of gold, he doesn't. He sticks around. Let's see, but that's right. They find a pilot.
He runs into his old bro, Winston, who is a drunk, rosy-cheeked fellow that we learn is sort of a Royal Air Force pilot, and we really don't spend a lot of time with him. We'll come back to old Winston, but he is a jaunty fellow. But we quickly cut to our tongueless, eyeless friend now, who is meeting with somebody that I don't know who he was told he was meeting with by Benny. But we see that it is Imhotep sitting across from him, whereas this man clearly cannot see.
This is as his name is Burns, American explorer who is now missing eyes and a tongue. Burns. I'm going to remember that name since I've been calling him Hunky.
I don't think you have to. He's not here for much longer. Frankly,
so. I'm learning his name just at the last minute. Yeah, that's my bad.
It seems respectful.
But so he thinks he's having a meeting with someone, but no, in fact, it is the mummy, and the mummy is here for a second helping of poor Burns. That eyes and tongue were not enough. We have the first instance of just all the fluids being drained out of one of the Americans who opened the cursed chest. The mummy renders him a human prune, and rest in peace, Burns.
That's very gay code of you to learn his name as you're sending him on his way. Like that's...
I was gonna say we're skipping ahead here, but if we're gonna have a gayest moment, then it's gonna be just draining a man of all their fluids in order to stay alive. Because I feel for you, mummy. I want to subscribe to your newsletter. I related to this moment.
I'm learning your name only after you're purely fucked, and
exactly.
I'm sending you on your way now, Burns.
Didn't want to learn your name, wasn't asking, but oh well, okay, fine. Okay, Burns, bye.
And so we see another cutaway of Imhotep basically reaching for him, being like, "Well, I'm in the room with the guy I want. Benny got me here, and now you're real fucked." So. So we cut past his scream or whatever, and as that happens, the Americans and Rick, sort of at the bar, see the water around them has turned blood. We are now in the plagues part of the scene.
Yes, we're in full-on Dark Omens territory here. First locust, and now water turning into blood.
Which is followed quickly by the third one here, because they step outside and they see a hail of fire essentially coming down upon them. It seems like at this moment we're going to get all 10, but I'm sorry, spoiler, we get like 6.
Yeah.
I don't know that some of them were as important
only
or
6
film-worthy as others. I know. What a lazy apocalypse.
Only 5 stars for this film. Gee, no. But yeah, so we're already seeing 3 terrible omens. But yeah, let's see, our heroes have a encounter with the mummy, right? The mummy.
Yes.
They
stumble in to find Imhotep. I think we see Burns's R.I.P. Drained corpse. Once again, no fluid left unturned for these particular people being punished.
They were warned, and now they're getting what they got. The mummy, the Egyptians were very verbose. Like again,
this is where we start to see, I think, Arnold Voss. I swear to God, I still think this is Billy Zane, the actual actor that plays the mummy.
We first see not Billy Zane. We're gonna call him pseudo Billy Zane for the rest of our podcast. He's starting to degenerate, but there are pieces missing from him. But he wants a kiss. Evelyn is sleeping, and he is approaching her quietly to steal a kiss from her, but that of course wakens her up and is discussing. He is missing his jaw and mouth for most of his regeneration.
Yeah,
and he's definitely missing a lot of it now. So Evelyn's getting kissed by a corpse, a juicy one, but a corpse.
Which, if you have to get a kiss from a corpse, maybe that's better.
Well, I don't know. That's going to be for another podcast. Juicy versus dry corpse. You weigh in, audience. Let us know.
Right in now.
But right at the last moment, saving her is Evelyn's cat, Cleo, and the presence of the cat sends the mummy into conniptions. He bugs out, which makes sense. And I believe it is Evelyn who explains cats are the traditional guardians of the underworld.
He has a spectacular exit once he's scared by the cat. He literally just goes, ah, and then like flies out the window in a burst of sand in a way that I wish I could leave every party, frankly.
The mummy is a role model to us gays, for sure. Making dramatic entrances and exits, making your centuries, millennia-long drama everyone's business, sucking men dry of their fluids. Really, my hero.
He's nailing it.
Yeah. Gay icon.
So at this point, the Americans sort of fold into our party of heroes because they're just fleeing, basically. They're like, why don't we get the fuck out of here together? Like, it's not really a like discussed thing. It's just like, why don't we get away from this mummy? And hey, there's a car. Let's all sort of hop in, type something.
Yeah.
And so they do go to Evie's workplace as the place they flee, and they find Evie's boss meeting with the Magi leader, the unnamed hunk there.
The curator apparently knows who they are, is familiar with them, and knows why they are present. They are, of course, the Magi, the ancient society who was trying real hard to protect Hymenoptera, and they failed, and now all hell is breaking loose. But
he's the one that talks about the cats and why he fears them because they're guardians of the underworld.
That's right, yes.
And then they also talk about Evie being identified as a Noxunamun, and frankly, sort of shift that off and to say that she's to be the human sacrifice to bring her back. So it is kind of a weird, like, does he think she's her? Does he think she's the sacrifice? In a way that I think is covered by the second movie. I genuinely haven't seen that one in forever. But I think they lean more into that she like is the reincarnation of a Noxunamun. I'm sure the mummy heads out there can correct me. But,
we'll have to go into this on another podcast, but that sounds familiar. Yeah.
I think they take that beat a little further on that. But anyhow, that's what they're like, yo, you're just really don't hang out with that guy one way or the other. And as this is all happening, an eclipse happens, the plague of darkness. So we're up to like four now
by my count, our apocalypse count.
Rick locks Evie in her room and sort of tasks the Americans with keeping her safe and locked in there while he enlists Jonathan to come with him. I don't think that's a great plan, but frankly, that's fine.
It's what they got, but let's see. So
we're missing the professor type something. Like the American gunmen sort of go with him, but the Professor Fezman at this point we see going down an alley with Imhotep pursuing him in a sort of again horror movie-esque shot.
We've now discovered apocalypse sign number 5, plagues. We now have denizens of Cairo infected by plagues, and it is bringing him under the sway of the mummy, and they are now his kind of zombie-like horde. And let's see, Fez-wearing scholar, he just gets pulled apart by the mob, right? I think just Imhotep gets him. There's definitely another guy. Well, he gets all his fluids drained.
Well, he's dead. Yeah. He's real dead.
Yeah, I think he gets cornered, and we see him like kind of his in shadow silhouette, being lifted up and drained, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
One of those, you're definitely fucked, but we're not going to show it on screen situations. But at some point, Rick also finds Benny again and sort of begins to sort of threaten him in a cute little sing-song voice. Like, you came back from the desert with a new friend, Benny, didn't you? And Benny explains that he's immune to what's going on, which is like the plague book. But as a scream happens, which I believe is the professor's death, Benny manages to get out the window as a distraction to escape there on that. So we see the screen came from the professor. Imhotep has regenerated even more. And then as they're looking out the window, he shoots flies from his mouth right at them. And they close the window in a way that's like, oh, maybe not. Like, maybe we don't want that.
Second, like Silver Placer, biggest gay moment of the film is every time he unhinges his jaw, it just again he's got gay skills. He's got a jaw that is enviable. Yeah, exactly. But
he does unhinge his jaw to like shoot flies at somebody.
Yeah, and this actor, as we'll discover, just again and again, gives real mouth. This actor, he is working his mouth in some of the most crazy, just snarls or maniacal, mouth wide open kind of crazy
some
looks.
Pouty looks at times. Like, he does do a lot with that. He hardly says anything throughout the movie. It is interesting in that way. Like,
but he works that mouth, not in a sexual way. Again, this is a tasteful film for a family.
Aside from the weird, gross, melty kiss he just had. Yeah,
exactly. So we now have, I guess we call this the sixth sign, a plague of flies.
Right.
Too.
I think this is our final sort of plague thing. You did call out boils here. I feel like we might.
That was number 5, I believe, as far as signs that we see.
We might have made it to 7. I don't know. But for the record, for those of you out there, we missed the death of the livestock. We definitely missed death of the firstborn, and I feel like we missed lice. Lice probably wasn't a very cinematic or fun thing to film. Like, oh no, we're really itchy now. Like, it's less of a than fire coming from the sky and blood, coming down.
It's just it kind of the point's been made. I think.
I'm sorry for you lice heads out there or plague completionists. But like.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't please everyone. But send us your hate mail regardless. Let's see. So we're having apocalypse happening around us.
Well, Evie's still locked in a room at this point, which again, probably not going to help against this guy. I'm going to say like Imhotep sort of bursts into the antechamber where she's being kept. It's like wind and sand. Again, what an entrance!
Yeah. He's got drama down. For sure.
He quickly dispatches the one American left to be there and to take him out because, like, what is the American going to do with a gun at this point? He just is like...
so that's... Have all of our American explorers been killed at this point?
No, we have one left to fully be...
drained and pruned.
To be dried out.
Yes.
But so he's done, and we see that he's almost full not Billy Zane at this point, and renders that American as a drained corpse.
Exactly.
I don't care about his name, frankly. I'm sure he has one again.
It
doesn't matter.
He's dead.
He's had a whole 3 minutes of screen time or whatever. But in another fun, sort of less dramatic entrance way, but way to get around a locked door, because I'm sure Imhotep could just kick this door in if he felt like it.
Yeah.
We see the keyhole start to fill with sand or to empty out.
That's right.
Where we get a cool shot of him entering the room in sort of a sneaky way because he has power over sand. A little less dramatic there, but this is where he kisses a sleeping Evie. He may have had
did I skip ahead?
Something. Well, he has 2 scenes like this, where he's essentially in Evie's room type something or whatever. And then Rick comes in with the cat in hand this time, having seen that the cat earlier scared him off, and just holds up the cat like, "What about this motherfucker?" And sure enough, Imhotep's like, "Ah!"
He's learned that guns are not the weapon of choice, but cats are. So he's resourceful, he adapts, and in comic fashion, which is just even better.
We've seen pussy as his just weakness throughout this movie. It's what got him into this whole coffin and the sarcophagus in the first place. So,
boom.
So this is continuing.
So yes, we get another humorous scene of cats saving the day.
And as Evie's like very shook by this, like having just been assaulted by a mummy, like Rick says, "Are you okay?" And before she can respond, Jonathan goes, "I think I'm fine."
This is why Jonathan is beloved.
Jonathan's great. Oh, Jonathan, yeah,
what a schmuck, but I love him.
So Evie at this point, whenever they're like kind of like, okay, we're probably alone, starts to opine that if the Black Book brought back Imhotep from the dead, maybe the Gold Book that they were looking for in the first place can reverse that. She starts to put her classics and literature and history degrees to work here, and we now see an army of people covered in boils as they're kind of talking this out. Just zombie walking towards the museum where they are at this point, and led by Imhotep as well, and holding Benny in their grasp as he's very unhappy looking about it. Like, we get the vibe Benny did try to just run off, but that the boil people or Imhotep found him. Were like, no, I still have one person to dejuice.
Yes. Yeah, Benny has cast his lot, and he's dragged along. But we have one more American that is a juice box basically.
Yes. Ready to be fully juiced. So they all fuck off at this point. Our heroes, they get in a car, and they're like, well, time to leave because this army of boil people and Imhotep are here. They found us. So they're driving off, and as they encounter a ton more boil zombies in the street, essentially.
Yeah, they shoot their way out.
And they're having decided they're being accosted on all sides. Some of these people are literally flinging themselves on top of them, so they're trying to have to throw them off, to shoot them off. And it's at this point where the American in the back gets caught by like 3 people who are trying to wrest him out of that. And he does say, like, he says, like, Rick O'Connell or something. And like Brendan Fraser looks at him, but really does not take a lot of effort to shoot anybody off him. Doesn't like lunge at the guy and be like, no, nameless American guy, because I don't think he knows his name either, frankly, at this point. Like, he's like, not Jeff, is it? Like, he's not too put out.
Would prefer that he didn't get juiced, but it's not gonna dive into the plagued mob.
I'm not going to lift a muscle.
Yeah.
So we see him get dragged out. And at that point, that's when he gets pretty cornered and, has his little pistols. And he's like, pow, 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 and takes out a few of them. But then is like, oh, click, 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 click. Like, my gun is empty. And the crowd parts. Imhotep comes out and decides that he doesn't need those juices anyways. What is he using those organs for? I can do this better if...
Exactly.
But as this happens, and as we've been warned, this pretty much puts him at full power. He now has all of these box people dealt with.
Yeah. He has achieved his final form.
He no longer has various fun new holes on his body. He is full not Billy Zane.
Exactly.
And loving life, I have to imagine. Yeah, he's got all of his things back. He's got tongues, eyes, genitals, whatever have you.
Really feeling himself now. Exactly. Yeah. But let's see. So next day, our heroes, they arrive at a Air Force base, right? So our drunken pilot that we meet previously, we meet him again, and our heroes implore him for aid, and particularly his plane. And so...
Oh, okay. There is one thing real quick on that I'll say on this last scene, is because it's important as to what's going on there. We do, first of all, Evie does translate the stone and says the locations of the books is mixed up. She does this in hearing range of Jonathan and Rick, basically saying, the statue we dug it up in, I think it's this other statue. And that's important because they don't actually make it out of the car where all the zombie people are. They get cornered. And Imhotep comes out and essentially... ends up taking Evie, but just Evie, because Evie negotiates to basically say,
"That's right.
Take me. Her friends will be spared. Yeah, if you take my hand," type something. And so she accepts in order to save everybody, and says not to fight now because she's going to be taking a hominoptera, where they have to complete the ritual. She's basically saying, "This is bad, but I'm not going to die like right now. So why don't you try to work something out of this?"
Yeah. She leverages her smarts to understand that they actually have a bit more time, not a lot, but her friends will clearly get killed right on the spot. And even in the midst of this, there's a funny moment where Evelyn corrects Benny's translation. Benny is translating for the mummy, but is not as skilled as Evelyn. And so even in the midst of saving her friends and confronting the greatest horror of all time, she finds a moment to humorously, academically shade Benny. Yes.
And Benny does steal the puzzle box, and frankly, it doesn't seem like the agreement is really honored that much, because they do have to escape into the sewer. And Evelyn's boss stays to fight the crowd with a sword for some reason, and is like just quickly mobbed to death, like when you would expect to happen.
He heroically buys our heroes time, but they're dwindling. We're now just down to the core the core group at this point, our heroic three. But Evelyn is in the clutches of the mummy now.
Right. So just our two, really. We just have Rick and Jonathan, and that's when.
Well, and our mysterious unnamed Magi, who has now joined them in their cause.
He has. That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
He was along in the car doing stuff. And so at this point, they're basically having to figure out how do we get to Hamunaptra quickly.
Yes.
And that is when we dovetail back to Winston, our good
Yes.
friend here,
Yes.
who is having tea in a desert in a great shot, just bloviating about his time in the Royal Air Corps.
just serving British realness. You just cannot start your day without a cup of tea, and this is no exception.
And they kind of tell him about the mission, and he's expressing great interest in it because the only real character trait this guy has in our two very brief scenes with him are that all of his friends kind of died in like a Royal Air Force, like perhaps World War I were to insinuate at this time. And he's like, I wanted to do that. Like, I wanted to die in a blaze of glory. And so he's like, a dangerous mission I might not live through. Sign me up. Like,
yeah, he's a what is a joyful warrior? What's the phrase I'm looking for? I'll think of it towards the end of the podcast. Kind of soldier of fortune, he's like just he's a adventurer through and through,
the old welcoming death, because he's an older man too at this point, type something that we see if
he wants one last moment of glory.
He wants a warrior's death, I suppose, is the thing that we would say of that. But so they do convince him to go. It doesn't take much convincing, mind you, and they are in a cute little prep plane essentially. There's not even enough seats for their whole party. They throw the Magi on the wing.
and Evelyn. They strap both of them to the wing.
Evelyn's not here. She's...
oh, no, that's right. Yeah, no, it's Jonathan, right?
Evelyn is literally riding in a sandstorm that later flings her and Benny out of it. We see, like...
That's right. It's Rick. It's Rick riding with the pilot, and then it's Jonathan and Magi strapped to the wing. Which, that's there you go. Yeah.
Honestly, the Magi looks like he's loving it. He's like, "Are you okay?" And they're just like full on grinning. But
yeah. Which, hey, I bet that would be awesome for sure. Anyone in the audience, if you've ever been strapped to the wing of a plane and gone flying, let us know what it's like.
If you are Flash from the StarCraft 2 scene in the early 2000s, riding into a tournament on a plane wing, let us know. So they do pass a giant sandstorm in the air as we are in the plane type something, and that is the one that, yes, we just see like unceremoniously just fling Evie and Benny out into a sand dune because we are to take it that this is Imhotep, and basically he's just letting him ride along in his body as a sandstorm type something of another weird, probably could talk for a while on body horror, whatever's happening there. Like,
yeah. No, actually, that's a good point. There's like bodies are very fluid things in this film. Either they're turning into sand, or they're being rendered for their fluid, or things are burrowing in them. Bodies are they're porous in this film. Huh? That's.
I think they resurrected too. I mean, it's just a thing, but
I think you just hit on something there. Boundaries are kind of a porous thing in this film in a lot of ways.
For sure. So they kind of get a neat little scene where Imhotep is sort of like, after they've stopped, he's sort of guiding the sandstorm, like flinging his hands up in the air, doing sort of a conductor, like a Fantasia-looking thing. And they apparently had to cut away real quick on these scenes because the same wind they were using to blow up the sand kept blowing up his little man skirt, not Billy Zane, and to be like just showing his ass off. And they were like, okay. So they like shot it from like waist up or something, but it was
that's funny. Okay,
but it's a pretty interesting scene too because the sandstorm turns into like a full-on face that's like with the mouth going to eat this plane out of the air. Like,
So we see the mummy on the ground, the plane in the sky, and he starts making dramatic gestures with his body, but especially his mouth. And I mentioned this before. The mummy's got a mouth. And what he is doing with his face, it is manifesting in this sandstorm that he is summoning with his powers and directing at the plane. So we're treated to, and honestly, I guess I'm kind of being, catty and funny about it, but the actor he fully commits, and I never thought even for a moment that it's something that could have been really cheesy and you could easily find yourself laughing at it, but I don't know, it kind of makes sense. Like the drama of the character is established at this point, and so with him just kind of with his mouth just like really leaning into like the snarls and sneers and like crazy wide-eyed looks, and it's like no, I bought it. Okay, it made sense at that moment,
It does do a lot while saying a little, and frankly, he's about to kill them via mouth when Evie does kiss him, surprising him out of it.
We have mouth versus mouth. We have the power.
Evie says, "I can give mouth too."
we have the power of the mummy's mouth, and then the power of her kiss. Yes. So yes, the dueling mouth power here. It distracts him in a key moment, and the plane is able to escape.
Well, it still explodes behind a sand dune.
Well, they escape the mummy's sandstorm, but at a cost.
That's true. They do a crash landing.
They do crash into a dune. Our heroic our British pilot gets his one last moment of glory and unfortunately dies in the crash, leaving our three, Rick, Jonathan, the unnamed Magi, to trek into the desert.
They do survive. Again, watch the movie. If you see this explosion, I'm a bit skeptical as to how they must have been flung off in some way. Like perhaps the wing people surviving is fine. Yeah, but Rick must have jumped out because it is an explosion. Not that big of a plane, huge explosion. But they're fine. They're all fine.
Yeah.
And frankly, even Winston, when they go over to him to be like, "Oh, he is dead," is like still perfectly intact, and so is the plane. So I'm like, what happened behind that sand dune? Like, what?
Yeah, it's a family-friendly film, so they can't show Winston just busted up, but yeah, he's
body parts askew, like throughout the sand dunes.
Exactly. So
he closed his eyes. He's dead. He's perfectly peacefully dead. Yeah,
exactly.
That's how we died.
And sinks into a sand dune. So yes, the desert claims the plane and the pilot. So the mummy thinks that of course they couldn't possibly have survived that crash. Proceeds with his captive Evelyn and Benny to Hamunaptra. Meanwhile, our heroes they survive. They trek into the desert, but we get the vibe they got close enough to Hamunaptra to like basically hoof it in at this point. Evie is with Imhotep and Benny being taken down to the sort of ritual chambers. We get another cute line from Benny or whatever, because Evelyn informs him that men like him always get their comeuppance, and Benny's like, "They do?" Like, it's like, wait, I didn't know that. Like, I genuinely had not thought of this.
Huh.
Crap. Yeah.
And then we see it cuts to like Jonathan the Magi and Rick sort of trying to get in the caved-in area, where Rick and the Magi, as our much more missly people, are sort of getting the rocks off, while Jonathan in the background's like, "Oh, put your back into it. Come on, like, work a little harder," until they both just stop what they're doing and look at him, and he's like, "Oh, just be quiet. That's okay." You're doing great, guys. But at this time, while they're doing that, Jonathan sort of sees and has the same choice the jailer did, because he sees the scarabs on the wall. And much like our unscrupulous jailer will say, Jonathan himself does not hang on to scruples very tightly, and so he starts popping some off the wall. And as he does that, he gets one of the scarabs coming into his skin, and he starts screaming as it goes about.
We think that Jonathan's finally gonna get it. He's finally his antics are finally gonna catch up with him. The thing's burrowing through his arm. It's getting real close to his brain, but Rick, he saves the day. He whips out a big old knife and just stabs it right in his arm. Just like cuts it out and like just kind of pops it out like a bottle cap.
Very strategic and a very big knife. And this again brings to mind the thing that I don't think there is blood in this film, but by God, would there be blood in this scene?
Yeah, fact, for as many people get stabbed.
Because this is not a small scarab or a small knife, and so he has to dig it in there and pop that thing out of.
They don't spare on the sound effects, so you definitely get the sound of flesh being either torn into or knifed into. But Jonathan is saved from our ravenous scarabs. And meanwhile, let's see. Well,
this is when Imhotep brings up his priest. He's finally got his bro priest, and he tells him to two orders here. One, kill them, and two, wake up your other buddies.
So he's getting the band back, and it's the gang is awake.
There's a very funny moment right after this where previously in the movie, Evie had delicately turned a mirror to light up a whole chamber with a series of mirrors in the sun. Well, Rick walks into this really dark room that's gigantic, sees a mirror, and just shoots it, which, I don't know why you would do that, but he must have shot it perfectly on the not glass part, because it perfectly rotates it into lighting up this whole massive treasure room. It's a very... I don't know. Rick can do no wrong in this movie. There's really not much wrong he's done at all. He's great with guns. He's great with knives. And he's just a lucky dude. And he's just this will probably work out for me. Pow! Shoot this mirror. What's the worst that could happen? 7 years of bad luck?
Yeah. They find gold, but at this point, they're so over it. Jonathan is tempted. Rick is not. He's just no.
No, not at this point. Yeah,
it's got to be cursed with something.
Jonathan's do we have time? And no, we don't. We're busy, Jonathan.
Yeah. Let's try not to have the world end. Come on. Yeah. So
they get interrupted by the mummies or whatever, the priests, where Rick says, "Who the hell are these guys?" and is told by the Magi that they're Imhotep's priest. And Rick responds, "Oh, all right then," and then just proceeds to shoot them. I don't know.
Yeah.
He really didn't need an answer to that question. He was going to shoot them anyways, I imagine.
It's just the more you know. Anyway, and then right after that, start shooting.
Okay. Yeah. And they have some big guns in this scene. They shoot them. Rick and the Magi shoot them with their big manly guns. Jonathan shoots them with a pistol for a second, and then ends up throwing the pistol at the mummy. This will probably work.
Bullets just not very effective. They just don't learn this. They try to make those guns work, and nope, they just never do.
And as our heroes are leaving that scene in the treasure room, being chased by the mummies, we see Benny go in there, and he starts to load up some of that treasure.
Yeah.
He says, I don't think you really need me right now. I'm going to start doing this.
Yeah, he sees an opportunity. There's a distraction going on, so he starts loading his pockets. And then we kind of lose track of Benny a bit, right? He's
doing his thing. We got a Noxuna at this point laid out next to tied up Evie.
There's a lot going on right now.
Been doing their stuff. Imhotep unlocks the Book of the Dead and really starts to do the ritual. He's been busy getting it done. So
we're getting dangerously close to the final moment here. Evelyn is on a slab next to the desiccated corpse of Noxuna. We're starting to see ripples and smoky, inky water once again. Evil's going down. But here comes Rick with the Golden Book of Amun-Ra.
That's true. Rick and Jonathan they're looking for it, and they find it pretty quickly exactly where Evie had deduced it would be in another statue. I forget. I think it's Anubis. It's under
the base of Anubis statue.
And then they find it, the Golden Book, the Book of Amun-Ra, and at this point, seeing that, the Magi sort of takes on a self-sacrificial act himself and says, "I'll take all these mummies. You get the book and go." Basically, go save Evie and whatnot.
Yeah. We don't see him die. This will be important later.
We don't see him die, but he is fighting a lot of mummies, and Rick throws dynamite at him.
I mean, Rick tries real hard to kill him, for sure. Rick's
well, if you're going to die anyways, let's just close that door up, too.
Shove this up your ass and light in, so cool. All right. Meanwhile, Rick has got a new golden sword, and so he's put down the gun. The gun's they've just done nothing this entire movie, and he's picked up the sword. He's gone old school, and he's got, with his big ass golden sword, he's cutting down mummified priests and undead. He's fighting. Things are happening. Action's going on. While all this is happening, let's see.
We cut to again, where Inoxinamun's like, you basically already covered that her inky soul has come back and is laid down and whatnot, and it does take up. She's alive again in a mummy body. She is not herself, not her beautiful snatched ass 4 hours of body paint self.
Presumably has some number of women to suck dry. I don't know.
Well, and it's also, as he's about to kill Evie at this point, Imhotep, he says that she must die so Inoxinamun can live. So there's probably going to be some body magic happen after this.
Evelyn presumably will be her first juice box.
And this will make him invincible, too. And so I would probably just keep stabbing at that point. But he gets distracted by Jonathan being just a little scoundrel up there, being like, look at me, I've got a golden book. And it gives Imhotep pause. He's like, the fuck? Like...
But let's see, Jonathan, with his book, he accidentally summons more mummies. He's just making everything more difficult.
He does, like, as you mentioned, O'Connell is like very comically beating mummy ass in like kind of a jokey, actiony way. Like he cuts off a mummy's head as the mummy like juggles it, like it's like oh my head. Like he kicks one in the nuts at one point, which I'm like, I don't know what that would do to a mummy. Like,
he's got some instincts, you know. They've served him well in the past, so you know.
It's a very funny scene, frankly. Like it is good action, but it's just it's the exact tone of the movie. It's like actiony with a bit of joke
with these great dashes of comedy.
At least 20% joke in there.
Exactly.
And then he hits Evie with a one-liner being like, oh, mummies, right? Like, and that's when he gets his, he's sort of grabbed by the ankle and is like actually taken down at that point. And they have the upper hand on him and his sword is out of reach. He's reaching for it. I can't reach it. Oh no. But he sees a mummy hand like sort of crawling towards it. And right as the mummy hand grabs it, he's able to grab the arm and then save himself. He slices the ankles off a mummy, who crushes himself with the big crushing rock that was meant to kill Rick, as Jonathan is then reading half the cover of the gold book. And a group of mummy soldiers pop out. He's very pleased with himself for doing this.
Yeah, but Jonathan, after making things more complicated, he then goes back to reading the book and just in time is able to take control of the mummy warriors.
So what happens is that Jonathan, he is so pleased with himself after reading the first half of the book that these things come to life, but Evie's like, you have to finish reading the book thing, because he's like, then you can control them. Because these soldiers actually do start fighting with Rick to give him more to do with the sword and look more badass and whatnot. While Jonathan's running away and hiding in corners, and it's kind of like, hey, Evie, what does this, like, stork thing mean and sound like? And she's being choked to death by Inoxinamun, who's chasing her at the moment. There's three things happening. Rick is fighting zombies, Inoxinamun is chasing Evie. Jonathan's doing that, and frankly, Imhotep not doing anything. Like, I was kind of shocked in this scene. I was like, he's just kind of taking a break. It's just like, this is probably going to be fine, whatever. And so Jonathan does ultimately get the words right, and that is when the soldiers are under his control. He tells them to go kill Inoxinamun or save Evie or whatever. And again, Imhotep, who could have done anything at any time at this point, just stands back and goes, "No!" as the guards once again kill his love.
I should mention these members are actually the Pharaoh's guard. They're dressed in the garb of the Pharaoh's personal guard, and in a grand moment of dramatic irony and comeuppance, Inoxinamun killed herself before they could get her, but now they get her this time. They
gotcha, bitch.
Exactly. We ran it 3,000 years.
We close this story arc 3,000 years later on that.
Exactly.
But once again, the invincible man-made sand and all power is over there, just probably feet away from this happening. And does not solve this problem. So
he's just too far and can do nothing to save his love. And in grand dramatic fashion, he calls out, but it's too late.
That's whatever. It's great for the story. It is a minor nitpick, but I was struck by that because I was like keeping track of who's in what scene or what's doing what in this scene, and I was like, all right, mummies, Rick, Inoxinamun, Evelyn, Jonathan, nobody's really chasing Jonathan. Jonathan's just like fucking off by himself, and then I'm like, what is Imhotep doing? And nothing, as it turns out, and nothing positive. So He's not helping Anck-su-namun. He's not helping the mummies. Like,
well, he's trying to find his way out of the plot hole, basically, that he got sucked into, as it turns out. So yeah, but yeah, he reemerges. Anck-su-namun, she's been stabbed repeatedly by the Pharaoh's guard. Let's see. What is going on now?
So he goes to kill Jonathan because he's like, "Hey, Jonathan, you just murdered the woman I just spent a really long time."
That was rude.
Yeah.
Come here, get your ass over here.
And so as he's trying to kill Jonathan, Rick does use his sword to chop off the arm of Imhotep.
Yeah.
Which Imhotep really just kind of turns around and like stares at him, like, "Did you fucking really just do that to me?" Like, and he starts flinging Rick around, like some sort of ragdoll or female in a drop movie, because Rick does get flung around a whole lot right here.
Yeah. First of all, good callback to our previous podcast episode, and So we're finally getting the direct confrontation between our hero Rick and the mummy. They're now just going right at it. But Evelyn has she now has the Book of Amun-Ra in her possession, and she is now reading from it. She is reading an incantation that will strip the mummy of his immortality, and we get this scene of a spectral chariot being ridden by the god Anubis with horses coming out of the kind of smoky, inky place that Anck-su-namun, I guess, has been in, and just rides right towards the mummy, rides through him, and pulls his soul just out of his body. The soul is dragged on Anubis's chariot back to the underworld, and it looks quite distressed and furious and anguished at this. And the mummy in fleshy physical form looks similarly and is just aghast at what has happened to him, but doesn't really quite realize just the full extent of it.
It's not fully said what's happening there completely yet, but we do see he's not dead. It didn't just like his body doesn't fall to the floor in a way that's like my corporal or like my soul type something.
Yeah, he's still on his feet, but he's been lessened. His immortality, the one impediment to our heroes this entire time, his unkillability is now no more.
And we saw how powerful he was right before this, because before his soul is ripped out, Evelyn does say, like, "Hey, keep him busy." And in a very slapstick moment, the next thing we see is Rick being literally flung across the room into a wall and just slamming into stuff. So he's very powerful in that moment, but then after his soul's ripped out here, or whatever, his immortality and his power, presumably, he sort of starts to walk up to Rick, and Rick just stabs him in the chest. It's like, yeah, this works now. So
yeah, almost kind of accidentally walks onto Rick's sword, like just arrogantly, thinking nothing has happened, but no, he has been reckoned with by Anubis. His power is gone, and he is now finally dying.
And after he gets stabbed, we get a very Terminator-esque sequence where he sort of stumbles backward into the black pit of faces, souls, something that begins sucking him slowly downward. Yeah. But the last thing we see of him is his sort of skull and face, and he starts to degenerate back into the mummy as he's sinking slowly into this pit of, again, whatever.
Smoky ether.
Spooky goo.
Yeah, ectoplasmic kind of stuff. Yeah. And his final words, "Death is only the beginning." In, classic villain fashion. Go out with an ominous note.
Gotta have that stinger, or at least a thumbs up as you sink into the lava. Yeah, Terminator style or something, like a middle finger, maybe the mummy would have brought out there.
But like all good movie franchise villains, he sets up the sequel. So good job, mummy. But our heroes have won. They've saved the day. The apocalypse has been averted.
And their reward is that the temple is now collapsing around them, where
Crap.
the ceiling's closing down on them. Every single wall, door, ceiling seems to be crushing down.
It was kept up by pure evil, and now it
must have been
crumbling.
I have a lot of questions about this entire situation and scene, frankly.
Yeah,
but...
fascinating architecture, right? Where an ancient mummy is the load-bearing structure, but whatever.
It makes for at least a good scene where sand's pouring in from the walls and everybody's having to run out. Once again, Jonathan is sort of looking around at the treasure, and they're like, no, we have to go.
Put it back, put it back. Yeah, exactly.
We see also Jonathan being a dumbass because right as the first thing we see him as he's fleeing this temple, falls down and flings the golden book right into the spooky goo. Yeah. Where Evelyn's like, "What the fuck? You just what?" Jonathan.
Yeah. There are some very, very convenient mishaps throughout the film. Maps burning, books getting flung.
Mm-hmm.
Objects are fated to do what they will in this movie for sure. So,
we do see Benny being here because presumably he's been going back and forth and ferrying treasure this whole time, making the best of it.
Yeah. We lost track of Benny. He was off camera, but he was busy still. His pockets are loaded with gold and treasure and whatnot. But unfortunately, with the temple coming down around him, doors are dropping, hallways are getting closed off, and Benny unfortunately gets trapped in the treasure room.
After he yells out for help from Rick, "O'Connell, save me!" And Rick actually does give at least a little effort, frankly more than the car American got.
Yeah. Rick's warmed up a bit, and even does make an effort to save Benny of all people, but it's too late.
It's not to be. He's trapped in the treasure room in a fit of irony.
Once Benny's fate is sealed, Rick is just kind of like, screw him. Moving on. I tried.
We do see a whole scene dedicated here to Benny's comeuppance because, much like Evelyn foretold, it's here.
Yes.
Here it is.
Yeah. Benny gets trapped in a chamber full of horrible scarab beetles. His torch flickers a bit more, and goes out, and in the darkness we, of course, understand what is happening based on his screams and the chittering of scarabs. He is presumably devoured, as we've seen plenty of times when a wave of scarabs descends on someone.
He is bones, yeah. I don't think we covered exactly, but there were definitely a worker or two at one point that, Rick and Jonathan, jump off to the side of a ramp, but the worker's just running down it, and the scarabs just fully reduce him to bones.
Yeah. So we can guess as to Benny's ultimate fate. We will probably not see him in the sequel. No. But that brings us to the concluding scene of the film.
Yeah, as they're sort of running out of Hamunaptra, where, again, the city is collapsing all around them. Mm-hmm. And I've never been in a collapsing Egyptian temple, but the explosions, again, are massive as this is happening. It was like Michael Bay got to be in charge of destroying this temple. Sure, write in if you've ever been in a collapsing Egyptian temple as to the explosiveness of it, I suppose.
Maybe they had dynamite. It was an excavation. Maybe it was that. I don't know. I mean, Rick throws some dynamite down a hallway. Maybe there was more dynamite in there. I don't know. I'm trying.
That's the best explanation, maybe. Yeah, there was dynamite involved, but he was just blowing up some hallways. I don't know.
Yeah.
These seem like foundational issues and the fact that it wasn't just the walls leaned in and collapsed. It was something has been activated here. Yeah. What activation mechanism do you have tied to a mummy dying that you never thought was going to come back in the first place?
Ancient self-destruct mechanism. Who knows? They had molten salt acid. Sure. Sure. Okay. Fine.
At least that was tied to a physical mechanism of you open this door, I'm gonna salt acid you. But this one was this temple is fine right up until you suck the soul out of someone with a chariot, and then you know what? Fuck this temple. This temple is no more of a
If I can't have this temple, nobody will. Yeah.
But yes, so that happens. They're all kind of staring at this temple, probably with the same incredulity I am about, like, well, that had a big explosion. But being focused on this, a hand reaches out from behind them and scares the shit out of them. And they're like, oh my god. And it happens to be our still unnamed Magi, who in about 30 seconds gets his name in the credits, but he doesn't get to have a name in this movie. So.
I guess he was the nameless one this whole time.
He must not be named.
What? Anyway, I'm trying real hard here. Anyway, so
this is where I have my note, because right at the end I was like, we still have not gotten his name to my knowledge. Like,
the credits are getting dangerously close here.
I was holding out for my boy.
Yeah.
But Jonathan remarks that they're going home empty-handed. Rick says, I wouldn't say that, as he and Evie are now basking in their love and riding one camel back to base together and stuff.
Rick finds the one treasure worth finding, and that is, of course, Evelyn. They kiss deeply, and this is, of course, contrasted with Jonathan trying to kiss a camel. What is this?
He takes what he can get.
Yeah,
I don't imagine Jonathan has a great game.
But comic relief to the very end, and
the last thing we really see as they're riding off is that the camel they're on actually is packed full of treasure, because this is what Benny was loading up on the camel stuff during his mini treasure runs here.
So they didn't steal treasure; they just stole from Benny, so it's fine. You know, they launder it through Benny.
Yeah, and we get the basically answer to a question unasked of, if Benny had just not gone back for multiple trips, he would have been able to escape and be a rich man, but he, greedy till the end,
there you go.
Came back and got him.
Lesson is as old as time. You know, there you go.
He's nothing if not greedy and inept, though. That was basically the character type of.
He's got some skills, but he's got profound moral failings. There you go.
But they literally ride off in the sunset. I was delighted. There really was not a scene in this movie that I thought was bad or like. It was just kind of fun from beginning to end.
It's a fun film. There are films more philosophically profound, but whatever. Not every film has to be a think piece. Not every film has to be just shocking or impenetrably complex. And this film, it's fun, but it's well written. It's well produced. The same writer. It's a writer director, right?
He might have written it. The same director does the first two movies, and he actually does a lot of the. Well, he's got his hand in every single Mummy thing after this going forward, mind you. Yeah. But finish that though. I'll get to the director in a second. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking up my notes. 1 second.
I'll talk about the director then. So Stephen Sommers directed this. He does have. He did the first two Mummy movies. He directed a couple of G.I. Joe movies. He directed, quote, I don't know what this entails, but the Universal Studios ride about the Mummy. He produced the third Mummy movie, and he produced or executive produced all. And I'm going to have a question for you. How many Scorpion King movies do you think there are, Tommy?
Okay, wait. There are two. There's. Wait. Okay. There's one with The Rock is
the Scorpion King.
But aren't there two, right?
There's 5. The latest one came out in 2018. Even there was a 2015 and a 2018 one, but Stephen Sommers had his hand in all of those as well.
Oh my god!
I was stunned to hear that approaching COVID, even we had Scorpion King movies still popping out.
Wow, geez. I mean, like that's what we needed during COVID. Jeez.
Oh God, who disturbed the mummy and brought the plague back?
Yeah, exactly.
The Rock dipped out after I think the second one. He was a bit part in, I think he's the antagonist of the second movie, actually, the Scorpion King, which is when they spun him off then. But 5 of them. 5! I don't know who they convinced to do that, but I think a lot of these did go straight to DVD, actually.
Sure.
But, and the last things, Stephen Sommers is also known for, like I said, the G.I. Joe movies, but he also did Odd Thomas and Van Helsing as a director. I know my boyfriend just loves Odd Thomas as a movie.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
Who doesn't love campy Wolverine? Hugh Jackman, just fighting vampires also. So
There you go.
he's had a fun, like he didn't do a lot of serious movies type something. He sort of has a fun movie career.
Yeah.
But I'll also say he was basically the one the studio landed on to have this movie have that same tone, because they had the Hellraiser guy, what's his name, Clive Barker, and then they even had George A. Romero attached to this film at certain points. And as you can imagine,
those would have been very different films.
Extremely different films and plans they had of darkness and whatnot, and how zombie-like and mummy-like type something things were. But they initially they ended on Stephen Sommers because he just has a great humor and action tone, which they loved for the action adventure family movie type something here.
Oh yeah. No, I honestly, it's the light touch and the humor that really is why I enjoy this film. It's just those quips, those jokes, that. Yeah, the film is delightful to me for that reason, and I just with Clive Barker, just incredible filmmaker. But yeah, that would have been a very different film for sure.
No
for
fun.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be nearly as interesting. Or Brendan Fraser may not have been cast in that role. They actually did talk about two other big names that almost. And almost is always, a sort of thing in casting. Who knows how almost. But Sylvester Stallone, and then one that was apparently real close was Leonardo DiCaprio, but he was filming The Beach at the time. He couldn't get his schedules lined up to do it.
Okay.
But that could have been...
That would have made for an odd film.
Interesting. I don't think he would have nailed the humor bits as much. I really think Brendan Fraser is what keeps me coming back to this movie.
Yeah, I can't imagine Sylvester Stallone in this role at all.
That one is the one that is out of
that's just
field,
that's just insane to me. And honestly, Leonardo DiCaprio, I also just can't because, just physicality wise, no, just cute little twink Leonardo DiCaprio back in the late 90s. No.
It certainly would have given a different vibe because, Brendan Fraser, while not like a hulking man, is certainly a much bigger, stronger, imposing something over little Rachel Weisz.
He's a strapping man, and I just can't imagine Leonardo DiCaprio back in the day selling it. For sure. Something that we haven't touched on. This is a remake of a film from the 30s. There was an original Mummy film with Boris Karloff. Yeah, Boris Karloff as the Mummy. Yeah,
and they touch on, or like he throws a few Easter eggs in there from that movie. Like I believe there is a character named Ardeth Bay in there, which is what our Magi's name is. Ultimately. There is. I was reading just a bit on this earlier, but yeah, he pays homage to it.
That's right. The mummy disguises himself so that he can. I'm reading some notes here. And dons the name Ardeth Bay as an alias while he is searching for a Noxuna moon.
Okay, so it is the mummy himself in that one that has that at least for a bit.
And so that's the reference. Yeah. So. Yeah, cool.
I don't think there was too much in there because he obviously didn't want to be beholden to a 1930s movie 60-something years later, but he did say he was a fan of it, Stephen Sommers, and so that's part of where he gets some beats in this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's see. So
what do we want to do? We got cast and crew bits. We got a bit of fun trivia on this over time.
As we've already talked, the gayest moments in the film are clearly sucking men dry of all their fluids. But what are the straightest moments of the film? What might those be?
So in my gayest part of the movie thing, I will say this being 1999, there's really almost nothing to play with here as like actually being hinted as gay or any sort of gay character even slightly.
Yeah, no, we're getting catty here.
Maybe Jaunty Fez misogynist could have been a gay man with his woman hating powers and his looking down his nose at you type something. Very catty gay. So. My pick was the all-male cult that just hangs out in the desert in their breezy skirt base, where the Magi, who have apparently been doing this for 3,000 years, because there's not a woman to be seen in the Magi. If it's all just a sweaty desert cult with your bros, I have to imagine something happens there sometime, because desert bros get lonely.
Come on, we need a straight moment though. We need one straight moment in this entire film. Come on, there's got to be at least one.
There has to be. I'm sure.
Let's think. Let's think. Let's see. Thinking that getting kissed means that you're falling in love. I don't know. Is that? I don't know. Am I too cynical? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Come on. There's got to be one straight moment.
I know that what I have written down is the archetype Brendan Fraser plays basically mixed with the archetype of Evie. There's incredibly over-the-top masculinity and charm to the point that, like I mentioned, not only allows him to effortlessly tackle like every obstacle and antagonist, but also like effortlessly landing him the girl, because he doesn't put in a great deal of like romantic effort or interest in this so much as like he saves her several times and she's just like
he kisses her once and she that just drives her crazy. It's basically like, once again, we're pushing over bookshelves. It causes an insane chain reaction.
For sure. It was real early on too. This was the stolen like jail kiss. There wasn't a great deal of like physicality between them for the most part. But she's just drawn to his like pure manliness as he saves her time and time again with actions and decisiveness. And Evie is portrayed as a somewhat like absent-minded yet very smart sort of spinster who does not really seem to be pursuing love and is pursuing academia until she is literally swept off her feet.
She's maybe a bit cloistered in the library, orphaned, and that's basically her safe place, and so sheltered perhaps, as we get a hint of from the museum curator, right? He's kind of just sheltered them there in the museum, and so again, book smart, world dumb, right? She's not aware of the larger world in some sense, which is why she's always just running headlong in the danger. She's just, again, very curious, but just doesn't have a sense of just how dangerous this all is, and kind of like with a kiss, right? She doesn't have a sense of how dangerous that kiss is. It kind of unravels her. She's doesn't know what to do with it. She doesn't know what to do with Rick at all. But she
asks him like, "Why did you kiss me?" Being like kind of rolling over in her head and being like, "Why did that even happen?" And he's like, "I don't know. I was gonna die and I was horny." Like, what do you mean? And that's when she storms off. She's like, couldn't quite understand it, but
it's a adventure epic, but it's a love story. You have the power of love. You have the Mummy and Anakasuna Moon and their epic love affair that defied death, defied time, and almost reemerged once again had they not been thwarted by the concerted effort of how many people. And then we have kind of the parallel love story of Rick and Evelyn, right? It starts off, with a small kiss, but it's, it endures throughout the film, and it becomes something real. Again, it's a love story too.
It's a very straight through line for sure, because it walks that just almost perfect popcorn flick line for being romantic enough, actiony enough, funny enough type something. And that's why I think it has something for everybody. It keeps me coming back to it because it's just so clever and funny, and it doesn't heavy-handedly like slap you with the romance or the whatever else. Like
it honestly it has something for everyone, and like what it has is very well balanced and portioned. Right, you never get overwhelmed by the action adventure part. You don't get overwhelmed by the comedy. The romance is nice, but it's never overwhelming. Like everything, it has its moment, and it just works as a great medley of themes and moments. And as I mentioned before, the comedy is what makes it really delightful to me. But it's an epic romance too, so it has grander themes. There's something meaningful there. It's not just a popcorn flick. So it's got some heart. So
we've been talking for a while, so I'm gonna go through some of these things pretty quickly, I suppose. But we'll go through some of the big cast here. Brendan Fraser is still probably most known for The Mummy and his body of work type something. As I mentioned, he got there through George of the Jungle success and, as Tommy mentioned, Encino Man type stuff. He starts to get some bigger roles with like the Oscar bait movie Crash around that time. But then really kind of middles around for a while, and I say that very understandingly because we learn more and more over time what happened to Brendan Fraser. He had a big moment in 2003 where he was sexually assaulted by the former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. He started to accrue longer-term injuries through stunts and stuff because he did all his own stunts, including, as we heard, hanging by his own neck in this movie type something. And so, like, and then just had some things going on in his life that kind of led him to just step back from Hollywood for a while. And so he started to do some smaller movies, some voice work, if anything, left in that, until he really had a big comeback recently with The Whale, where he won an Oscar for Best Actor.
He kind of falls off the radar for a bit, but then he came back in a huge way, for
and
sure.
when people learned why, he did have a big batch of support behind him.
And I say huge way, not just to make a pun about The Whale, but just like it was a spectacular performance. And so, we should perhaps have a podcast about that,
Yeah, and I mean, he shows him in Killers of the Flower Moon. Like, so he's been on some bigger projects since he's come back, and frankly, it's good to see the renaissance.
I joke about Brendan Fraser in this film being a kind of gangly, hulking character, but a fine actor, and it's good that he kind of is having another moment. So
Rachel Weisz has a super long, basically list of stuff, and I never saw anything below a 5.0 rated anything. Like, she must have a great agent, but she also has an Academy Award. She won Best Supporting Actress for The Constant Gardener in, I believe, 2006, 2005. But she's been in things like About a Boy, The Lovely Bones, one of the Bourne movies.
What I recently saw her in was the Haunting of Hill House. Series on Netflix.
She's incredible in that.
Very good in that. Boy, that show just scared the piss out of me with its jump scares. Man, those are. If you like jump scares, whew, boy. If you don't, it's going to be a hard watch. It was a hard watch.
Be careful when they're in a car.
Oh, say no more. But man, did I almost soil my couch? Jeez. Anyway.
She tends to gravitate towards a lot of dramas, though, so it is interesting to see her in this in sort of a popcorny fun. And actually, I think she bailed on The Mummy 3 because she was pursuing. She's like, I'm an actress, as opposed to being like, there's another Mummy sequel to this one. So, notably, she's in 2 of these Mummy films, and then moves on to her more serious things. But she pops up in a bunch of stuff. She was Black Widow's adopted mother in the Black Widow solo film. I think she has been in maybe even more of the Mike Flanagan verse after Haunting Hill House type stuff.
Let's see which.
I forget if she was in Fall of House of Usher or something, but either way, she's incredible in what she's in there.
That's What? Or wait, I'm thinking of a different actress. Am I thinking of a different actress? Was that her?
Maybe. Honestly, if you told me it was Rachel Weisz, I'd believe you, but I also was shocked to hear that a bit because we need to confirm this real quick before we go further on this.
Before we make any wild claims about what she's been in.
While we're looking this up, I will talk about John Hannah briefly. This is the guy that played Jonathan. Yeah. I loved this guy growing up in that role, but I think if gun to my head, I couldn't have told you what else he's been in because he is a kind of... He hails from Australia, but he seemed to have been in a lot of British fare.
The thing that I know him best is the Spartacus TV series.
Yeah, he was in Spartacus. Yeah. That's what I have down here as one of the things. He did some American projects like Spartacus, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or The Last of Us recently was some of the stuff that popped up for me. But he just had a ton of projects I've never seen that frankly intrigue me because as a great actor, I do think a lot of them are just like UK-based or something that had them sort of not fall into my purview. So I'll have to take a look at that sometime. As mentioned, we should call this person out by name because he's not Billy Zane, in fact. Arnold Vosloo is a South African actor that plays Imhotep. Again, up until this morning, I believed that was Billy Zane. So I'm just a little stunned more than anything. I didn't put too much together around Arnold Vosloo, but he's done a bunch of things, apparently. And he reportedly was kind of shocked himself that he got the role because he was like, I feel like villains usually get like big name actors, and he was not one at the time. And so he did a great job on that, I think.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was great. I thought he looked good. I thought he was dramatic in just the right ways. It's kind of campy, kind of theatrical, but very serious. Like there's never any moment when he's kind of winking at the audience, like, "Oh, look at me being silly." No, like he's just like fully invested and
very committed.
And it makes it work because it's a performance that easily could have been just real cheesy and just this could have been a very different film, like one that's like so bad it's good in a funny way. No, it's actually just a good film, and a lot of it is Arnold Vosloo.
The last thing I found in the cast and crew that interests me about this, the guy that did the composer work of this film, Jerry Goldsmith, he does really great work here. But when looking at his like film credits, I was kind of stunned that he had like a ton of composer credits, and like he still has some up until like last year or whatever, despite having died in 2004. And what it was is that this guy wrote the Universal theme. Like whenever the globe comes out and it turns and you've got the movie coming on. Okay. I don't even know if I could do this for copyright reasons, frankly, or for whatever. Like I won't do it. You can look it up. But he wrote that. And so that's why he keeps being credited in a ton of these movies even today, because if they use that theme, that's him.
I'm looking at a list of his film credits, and honestly, it's pretty amazing. Chinatown, The Omen. One of my favorites, and we're totally doing a podcast on this, Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. One of my guilty pleasures.
Well, his last thing was like a Looney Tunes movie. So again, if The Omen, unless it's the original one, he might have done that. But some of those things you'll see, because he's listed in so many big name movies, and that's where I started to look more closely and was like, what did he do? Oh, okay. It was like the opening theme for that producer deal. But
Cool.
Several less bits. But this is really fun, especially because this has been like, it's 1999. There's a bunch more like things to pull on, or like interviews people have done over time about these movies with little bits of fun. I already covered the one that, Brendan Fraser nearly died while being hanged. And the director's like, look, don't dive. The library disaster scene we touched on several times was apparently done in one take. And if it got flubbed, they were going to have to spend over a day putting that back together. So they were very pleased that they got that whole domino effect thing done. I mentioned, Noxuna only wearing a loincloth and pasties and a little bit of jewelry on her whatever stuff to look that spectacular. Shout out to the makeup artist, because she definitely did, as Tommy said. He's going to use this for his concubines.
Mark my words.
Credit her.
Mark my words.
The production actually had the official support of the Moroccan army, and the cast members had kidnapping insurance taken out on them, a fact that the director did not disclose to the cast until shooting had finished.
Man, this guy, jeez. Wow. This guy's a scoundrel.
He cares a little bit about you. But for my history heads, Imhotep is a real historic figure, but he was not the high priest of Pharaoh Seti. He was the architect who developed the first pyramids in ancient Egypt, most notably the pyramid of Pharaoh Djoser, Djoser, at Saqqara around 2600 BC. His ability was such that he was said to have been descended from the gods, and his name means one who comes in peace, which, that's kind of
interesting.
Seti the first was a real pharaoh, but he actually ruled around 1300 BC, almost 1300 years after Imhotep died. So they were not bros. He did not cheat on him with her, but and Noxuna was a Egyptian princess who was half sister and wife to Pharaoh Tutankhamun, in a very Lannister situation. It seems.
Sure. Okay.
It is only in the second movie we do hear Ardeth Bay's name said aloud. So Don't worry, my boy gets a little recognition coming up here because they let him live, if nothing else. But there is a novelization of the movie. Like I said, it does add some backstory stuff. It does talk about the more horrific bits of Imhotep's curse. It talks about the Carnahans, a.k.a. Jonathan and Evie's parents, a bit more. It'd be interesting because I do think there were a few things that were very lightly covered, and again, like they did a lot of good show don't tell. They did a bunch of not getting bogged down in backstory, so I'm not mad about that, or I'm not sad about any of these things not being in the film so much as to say, if you're a huge mummy head, there's a bit more you could learn about it out there. The man that plays Benny is named Kevin J. O'Connor, and when I'm scrolling through just tons of bits about this movie and trivia, this one's just struck me as video head cleaner material. Kevin J. O'Connor had been roughed up so much during the filming of the scene with Benny in the Egyptologist office that he was badly bruised and his nipples had to be iced afterward. So, if you were wondering if anybody's nipples had to be iced afterwards in this movie, they were.
I'm gonna have to go back and like watch that scene. Like, what happened to his nipples?
What did you do to Benny's nipples?
Jeez, that's interesting bit of trivia. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and this was filmed out in various parts of Africa, not Egypt itself, but it was pretty hot out there. They had several people having to be airlifted and stuff. They made up a concoction that had to be drank every 2 hours to keep people hydrated. So, Stephen Sommers, cracking that whip, getting his shots. Cause,
I had no idea this guy was so hardcore. Wow. Jeez. Forcing some method acting on Brendan Fraser there. Jeez. Did he die? The guy who played the mummy, like, geez, like we're gonna gut you and bury you alive, just so you get a sense of what you're feeling here in this scene.
Yes, Tommy, those were not Billy Zane's fingernail marks in the sarcophagus. Stephen Sommers, death is only the beginning. And then he put it in the film. Yeah, Stephen was like, that's a good touch.
Method all the way.
Yes. We'll get to the end here, this sort of ratings and ending wrap-up. I do want to say, Tommy and I both love film and cinema and stuff. It is hard to sort of, slap just a simplistic number out of 10 on something or whatever. We may find our own rating systems. Go ahead.
I agree. I don't, like, what do these numbers mean? Is this the best film of all time? I don't know about that. Is it a fine film? Yeah, it's a fine film. There are plenty of very philosophically profound films that I've watched that I don't think are not as, I don't know, solid. Again, like, what does this even mean? I don't know.
Enjoyable. This is just a sort of, again, popcorn flick type something.
Maybe in comparing it to other films that are as adventurous and epic, you can think of, again, we mentioned Indiana Jones. So, like, stacking up against some, like, good old-fashioned Raiders of the Lost Ark fare. I don't know. I mean, it was a fun film. Like, does this have the artistry that Spielberg brings to? But whatever. It's a fine film. I very much enjoyed it, and I was never bored, and I was never displeased.
So let's riff there for a second, actually, just because I saw one reviewer talk about how this was Indiana Jones crossed with the Terminator that seemed kind of akin.
Honestly, I was kind of I was thinking about kind of along these lines, like, what does this remind me of? Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Dracula. This is very much, to me, it's a film where an ancient evil is kind of unearthed or released by someone kind of hapless. This villain sees who he thinks is the reincarnation of a long lost love, tries to abduct her, is initially thwarted, kind of abducts her, but not really. I don't know, there seem to be some parallels, maybe just in the structure of it, like they both kind of have a kind of gothic horror villain. I don't know, but I was remarking that this seems kind of similar to, like, I saw Nosferatu recently. It's like, it's like kind of feels similar in a kind of vague way, maybe. But,
for sure. Have you ever seen Romancing the Stone?
Yeah.
I feel like it pulls tonally from that because, like, Indiana Jones is a bit more serious. It still has fun and stuff.
Yeah,
and, like,
you just nailed it right there. Yeah, Romancing the Stone. This is kind of like Romancing the Stone with a. Well, I don't know. They punch a lot of people on Romancing the Stone. Yeah,
I feel like it's that plus some Indiana Jones. There's some things you could mix in here percentage-wise.
If Romancing the Stone was a period piece, then it would be The Mummy. Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah.
It's a fun one, and I think that's what I would drive home most of all about The Mummy. It's just a fun film. Like, some of the jokes may come off as corny to you or something, but I can't quibble with it. I think it's all cute. I think it's very fun and well acted, and Brendan Fraser's having the time of his life type something, it seems. And so, all that to wrap back around, I think the most useful thing about the rating system, at least for me, is that it shows how the audience or the critics react in this. And so, like, it sits at a 7.1 of 10 on IMDb overall. It has a 62% on Rotten Tomatoes with only a 48 out of 100 on Metacritic. And a lot of that shocks me. Like, I'm kind of shocked that any of it would dip below a 7 of 10 almost.
That seems harsh.
Real low. And there's like a 14-point difference between, like, if you look, like, critics, how they feel about this movie versus audiences, with audiences skewing about 74% and critics in, like, the low 60s. And again, I think it's kind of a, what do you want out of a movie? Or do you need everything to be, like, deeply themed or whatever? Because I really can't pull, like, a big running theme or, like, a lesson or something out of this movie besides maybe if a curse box says, hey, I'm going to curse you and eat all of your fluids, be like, we don't open that box, like, but that's not really a deep theme. Like,
well, it's a love story. There are some lessons about greed. I don't know.
There's greed. I guess going about love the right way. Sure. Maybe don't cheat on your bro with his wife because then you'll be tormented for 3,000 years. Versus just a little meet cute with a librarian, which is all fine.
It's about, the enduring power of love for better and for worse, so there you go.
But it's such a charming movie, and that's why, like, that does shock me a bit. Just anytime it happened on my TV screen, like I said in cable, I would just kind of keep it on there and be like, until the end, really. And I on a rewatch, I really found nothing to quibble about, like mentioned. Seeing it with fresh eyes, I guess, I mean... If you're a real serious movie person, including Rachel Weisz, who was like, you know what, maybe these movies aren't for me after 2 of them, like, I get it, I guess. But I don't know, I'd give it a 9 out of 10 at least. Like, I think it really did everything I wanted it to for a movie.
I liked it. Yeah, and again, watching it some number of years after first seeing it, I was very pleasantly surprised. I was expecting to pan the film, and no, I liked it. No, I kind of had a 180 on it. I was like, no, this actually is a solid film. I liked it.
It's super neat. And maybe sometime we'll wrap back around to doing the sequels. I don't know about Scorpion King 4 or 5 or something there, but there is the second sequel, I believe, holds up, or the first sequel, the second movie, holds up pretty well. The third one is where it starts to lose me a bit because they have a child that's kind of obnoxious and annoying, and like I said, Rachel Weisz dips out. So I think even she took a look at that script and was like, you can recast me.
She'd gotten paid well. She had some leeway, some flexibility to.
But I'm also not pinning us into only, watching good movies. So we'll see what we have here. But
quote unquote good film. Like, again, like not we. I don't want to always review think pieces. There's the cinematic universe. It takes all kinds, and it has all kinds of delights, and some of those are heavy and dense to the point of inscrutability, but they're wonderful for that reason. And then other films are like The Mummy, which are very accessible and are fun and there's a place for that too. So
for sure.
Before we wrap up, I have one errata that I feel the need to touch on. Kyle, would you please tell me the name of the actress who plays Ripley in Death of a Unicorn?
It's Jenna Ortega.
Yeah, Jenna. I'm going to say this a million times so I don't forget. Jenna. I was all over the place with her name. Jenny, my apologies.
You Forrest Gumped her.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jenna.
Yeah.
She could go by Jenny. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know Jenna, I suppose. But
Jenna Ortega is her name. Just to be perfectly clear. So that is my errata. Is there anything else we want to touch on before we depart?
Not too much.
Right.
I don't know if we have a movie picked up on the horizon. We are going to start having guests at some time. We're going to have some of our friends and people in the business and all sorts of stuff on. We're going to let them pick the films so that they are passionate about them and have something to say, and then we will watch them alongside them. So
yeah, I think that'll give a new perspective, but also an enthusiastic one too. I'm always happy to hear people talk about their favorite films.
Certainly.
So
we've seen heard things name dropped like Scooby-Doo or Burlesque or Showgirls or all sorts of fun things that we may be covering in the near future.
Yeah.
But we're excited to introduce you to some of our good friends and people also knowledgeable about talking, and good funny people too, mind you.
Exactly. Well, my name is Tommy.
I'm Kyle.
And this has been Video Head Cleaner. Make sure to check us out next time. And until then,
see you later.
See you later.